My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Due to that suit being pressurized.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Welcome to another bright-ish Tuesday morning, the 28th of April. This, my dear friends, is the home of common sense. It's the where... Well, it's basically where you, the alarm clock Brits, have your say on the news of the day. As ever, 3 ways to get in hold of us. You can ring. Tommy's in. Tommy's just come up with the greatest line ever uttered. I forgot something into the studio. And I said, Tommy, I'm really sorry. And he said, don't be sorry, be better. Told off already this morning. 0344 499 1000 is your telephone number. You can send that voice note. Who makes the first voice note to Christian, who's looking dapper this morning and is armed with a piece of Mrs. Kyle's banana cake. He's very excited about that. 0344 499 1000 and your text messages throughout the show at 87222. Do please start your message with the word talk. What are you waking up to? A big day for Sir Keir Starmer. God, I've gone 3 minutes before we mentioned him. At 9 o'clock in front of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, which is actually organised and sorted by Dame Emily Thornberry, who doesn't hold back at all. We have the Foreign Office, the former head of the Foreign Office, the guy who was before Sir Ollie Robbins, Sir Philip Barton. Is he going to stick the knife in? Followed by Morgan McSweeney. You know, I've lost my phone. I didn't have the messages on, and it was the government one, and I phoned the police, but I didn't tell them who I am or where I'm from. He's up as well. We are going to follow this from 9 o'clock, because I think it is a massive day, on top of which, later on, Starmer, there will be a vote in the House of Commons as to whether he should, in fact, face an ethics investigation in front of the Privileges Committee, right? This Privileges Committee was the reason that Boris Johnson, who ate some cake, was brought down. You heard, if you're irregular to this, Dan Hodges from the Mail yesterday on this show say he has definitive proof. Well, his mind, he said, I believe Keir Starmer has lied 7 times to the House of Commons and 7 times to the British people. There is absolutely no way he should not be put in front of the Privileges Committee. But in a sort of rearguard moment last night, he pleaded with his own MPs. He said it's a political stunt. He called it a political stunt to hold him to task, the man who would not stop until he destroyed Boris Johnson. James Cleverly said, this is really interesting, right? I thought so. Starmer has no need to whip MPs. I know that doesn't sound great to people who don't understand what that means, but basically you say, you vote this way or I'll fire you all. If he's got nothing to hide, says James Cleverly, why does he need to tell them how to vote? Fascinating. Is it D-Day for Starmer, or will he wiggle off the end of the hook as ever? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. And the latest is the King and Queen touched down in Washington, D.C., where they were met by Donald and Melania Trump. Congress, he will announce several things later on. He's basically been sent by Starmer, hasn't he, to soft diplomacy. Let's try and improve the relationship. I find it ironic that the King, with cancer, bless his heart, is all that way across the pond doing his best to save the relationship with America, whilst our own useless Prime Minister is basically over here trying to save his own skin. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. All of that stateside, all of that over here. But, ladies and gentlemen, how do we start today? With a svelte, tanned and very excitably looking Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be excitable looking.
Are you excitable looking?
People made
you look very well, but you've got the Robert Jenrick green tie on. Is there news to be had?
It's the generic parliamentary. It's not teal. Is it teal those guys wear?
Yeah, good colour.
Yeah, it's not teal. It's just a nice parliamentary green today.
You didn't adjourn until midnight last night. I want to talk about that in a bit, which was the Troubles Bill. That disgusts me so much. But let's start with Starmer. Massive day. We start with the Foreign Affairs Committee, Select Committee, at 9 o'clock. Sir Philip Barton, Ollie Robbins' predecessor, who also talked about the pressure he was under to wave Mandelson through, right? Followed by Morgan McSweeney, and I make no apology for this. I was walking down the road and I had two phones, and the one that I lost happened to be the government one, and I didn't know that was the government one. And the thing is, like, what happened was on that one, the messages weren't turned off, so they've gone. And then I phoned the police, and I didn't say I was Morgan McSweeney, and I didn't know where I was, but I promise you it's real. Your leader, Kevin Bednott, has described it as fishy at best.
Fishy at best. Well, he sounds as believable as Keir Starmer sounds, doesn't he? It all sound, well, didn't he say it? Starmer said it's incredible. Some of the stories he's having to tell now are incredible. They're unbelievable. The absolute rubbish. And the front from a man who, we saw what happened of a party gate, of a birthday cake, and the standards to which he was willing to hold Boris. And then we see this thing, and every day there's another revelation about how crooked and twisted this situation is, how unbelievable it is that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom appointed a man who he knew had been sacked from office twice, who he knew had links to one of the most vile, awful paedophiles ever to walk the planet.
Yeah.
We then find out UK security and vetting flagged this situation, were concerned about it, and the government just went ahead with the appointment anyway. Absolutely stinks. We not only is that, it's the challenges of a guy who's lied to the country, ultimately, who's misled the country. It's the fact he told us due process was followed. It wasn't. This is the lawyer, not a leader, but he can't even do the paperwork and the process right. But actually, it's the threat to national security. He put in the hands of Peter Mandelson confidential information that was overwhelmingly important to our national security. We now know that Peter Mandelson is under investigation for mishandling. Previously mishandling such information. It's a threat to our national security. This Prime Minister has nowhere to go other than leave the job.
0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Will he go? Because here's the thing. Your leader, Kevin Bednott, has managed to secure later, I think this is really interesting, a vote in the House of Commons as to whether he should face an ethics investigation in front of the Privileges Committee. Now, we all know that Labour, unfortunately, has this huge majority, and this will... But I want to ask a question, because politics is a dirty game. If you're a Labour MP and you don't want Starmer, and I think a lot of them would admit that, Carl Turner, a real critic, is on from 7 o'clock this morning. What is the moment when they go, I'm being told I've got to vote with him, but actually I'm going to lose my seat? Or are they resigned to losing their seat and won't think? Because ethically, that's how Johnson fell. When I've got Dan Hodges and almost anybody I respect telling me this guy has lied 7 times, why don't his MPs today do the right thing? Because if he's telling the truth, then he'll get through it. Because to me, I mean, let me play this. Cathy Newman, new show on Sky. All right. Anyway, she interviewed Starmer yesterday. He says this is a political stunt. Have a watch.
If you're so confident that your conduct is so very different to Boris Johnson, why not just let the Privileges Committee investigate and you'll be proven right? Why are you whipping your MPs to vote against this call for an investigation?
Well, because it's a stunt.
You are whipping your MPs against it.
Well, we've got a meeting of the PLP later on tonight where that's usually determined on a Monday evening. But it is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country.
Some people say that I've got it in for Keir Starmer. I haven't. But I just want, can we just... I don't believe a word he's... When you look at him, tell me, peeps, tell me, alarm clock Brits, am I missing the point? How could he? Oh, we'll decide that on Monday evening. Oh, there's transparency. No, there's no transparency, which is why even your own party know you're lying. And it has to be, fair play to Cathy Newman, it has to be the same process that you went on and on and on about over Boris Johnson.
Well, I mean, you had it there. Why will his MPs not vote for this today? Because they won't, will they?
Why?
But the reality is those spineless MPs have voted to remove winter fuel from pensioners.
Yep.
They're voting to get rid of jury trials. They voted last night in support of this ridiculous idea of allowing our veterans to be dragged through the court with all these
Don't start me on that.
If you're willing to vote for those things, if you're willing to allow this grooming gangs thing to do, if you're willing to put those things at the door, of course they're not going to vote to see this man scrutinised properly and held to account.
Front page of the Mail that follows this story with Dan Hodges brilliantly. Jason Groves and Mark in Beckford as well. Starmer stitch up to save his own skin. The thing is, at what point does an MP, this is what I want to ask you, at what point does an MP go, whip or no whip? He's a dead man walking. I want to change because the only way when I look at my in tray of me even giving myself a chance in 3 years to keep my job is to get him out of 10 Downing Street. Is it post-May? Let me get this straight, by the way, for the people who think that we've been on some sort of mission. No. I cannot tell you how unbelievably shocked I am about how appalling this government have been. I never in my wildest dreams thought that in 2 years a man could end up less popular than the 47 prime ministers. And I'm being serious. Your party had it's extraordinarily inefficient, isn't it?
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? But I think when you look at the guy, so we always talk about politicians not answering questions. When you look at Prime Minister's questions now, and you see that absolute shambles that takes place every Wednesday, where he fails to even acknowledge the question he's been asked. He doesn't try to engage with the question. He literally will not answer questions. That's what makes this investigation so important, that they will be able to take him in there. They will be able to actually question him. When he starts getting questioned, he now crumbles the minute Kemi takes him to task. He ends up confessing also, he confessed to the fact he knew the links between Mandelson and Epstein before he appointed him. The more we hear of it, the more he's questioned, the more it unfolds, and the more it's plain for all to see that he's not fit to govern.
He must have known at that moment that this was going to land in his... I don't understand it. Listen to your lead. This is a Conservative montage published by Kemi Badenoch. In her mind, and she's been very vocal about this, he, Starmer, lied and lied and lied and misled the country in Parliament. Have a listen.
Prime Minister resorting to lies. The Prime Minister lied. He lied to this country. If he misled Parliament, he must resign. It's no good him trying to blame politicians in general. There's one person at the centre of this. Look, there are only two possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers. Come off it. The public have made up their mind. I think the facts speak for themselves. He then lied about what had happened. The Prime Minister lied. I genuinely think now that it's in the national interest that he goes. The ministerial code says that ministers who knowingly mislead the House should resign. Why is he still here?
I mean, that's about the best thing the Tory party's put out forever. I mean, it's extraordinary, but it's true, isn't it? The similarities are striking, and if you listen to Dan Hodges and the people at the Mail that have followed this story about McSweeney's phone, they will tell you exactly the same. There's too much going on here, and yet this guy will do anything. Surely if you have to whip your own MPs, right, you've got something to hide, haven't you? I think Cathy Newman's spot on.
It's the hypocrisy, isn't it? It's the fact that you've literally got montage after montage of him calling out a guy over a birthday cake, yet at the same time is willing to carry on despite his hands being so grubby. It's
the other thing that I have a real issue with Starmer at 6:15. By the way, please, what do you make of this? Just scraping to save his own skin. 0344 499 1000. Voice notes or calls 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Oh, hold on a second. Straight to it. Let's do a voice note. Travelling Boz. Good morning, my son.
Morning, JK and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. So once again, Starmer is grovelling round to try and get away with it. I think he's lied more than 7 times. He actually lies every time he opens his mouth. What was that? Snake oil salesman or whatever. He is the snake. He's an eel. He's so slippery. He's like the Teflon Don every week, waiting for him to be toppled. And he keeps getting away with it because he throws bodies under the bus. But the bus will eventually run him over.
It is extraordinary that the depths to which this man will do. You lot are full of it here this morning. Morning, JK and Matt. The Labour MPs are more about their jobs and the issue with Starmer and Mandelson. God help this country, says Bill in Romsey. Morning, we're going north to Ipswich. Morning, Louise. Jez and Matt. Will Morgan McSweeney have to answer under oath today? That's a good question in front of the Select Committee. Is that true?
There are legal consequences to not turning up to those Select Committees and to not answering the questions that are put to you. Like they are authorities and they can hold you to account. I think the other thing that you've got to think about with this entire saga is that you've got a government that's paralysed. You've got a government. The only thing that Keir Starmer's worried about this morning is not the problems facing people at home, not about that ballooning welfare bill, not about international security and the problems that we've got going on in the world, not how people are going to pay those damn bills and the fact that fuel prices are going up. He's worried about how he's getting through today and keeping the keys to number 10. That's his only priority today, when he should be dealing with the things affecting people.
And that's the truth about that interview with Cathy Newman from Sky, because what he says is, there's transparency and this government's getting on with dealing with working people. If I hear that again, honestly, I'm going to punch myself. He's not. You're absolutely right. All he's doing is rushing around trying to save his own skin. Morning, Jez. Just on holiday in Thailand. Great. If I had the money, I would never come back. This government is the worst, says Gaz, that there has ever been. Vic, just no integrity, any of them. Hello to Damon from Wigan. Starmer's thrown everyone under the bus, and yet when it comes back to his own job, he wants everyone to back him, but he also wants to prosecute me for being an army veteran. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Morning to Simon in Durham. Very happy to be wrong, but Starmer isn't going anywhere. They're going to have to winch him out forcibly with a crane to remove him from number 10. The guy is brazen and stubborn, and I don't believe is likely to be moved. But I'll tell you what, right, Matt Vickers, last night, again, people will go, it's a bit harsh, this, Jez. The low point for me is he will say, in my mind, and do anything to save his own skin. Apparently, this is brilliant, his wife. Oh, yeah, haven't seen much of her. Let's not get into that. Apparently, his wife thinks he should stay on. Let's have a listen.
I always listen to Vic. And I think she was the one in the first place that basically said, why on earth would you want to go into politics? But she is an absolute...
And your answer to that question now?
She is an absolute rock, and I confide in her all of the time, and hers is the best advice. I'm just thankful that I've got her every day.
And at the moment she's advising you to keep going.
She is, yes, and we talk everything through, and it's fantastic. We've got also two fantastic kids, a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. I can't tell you how much joy and happiness they bring. They are my pride and joy every single day.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it, when politicians have their backs against the wall, out comes the family and out comes all that. I'm sorry, and people will go, don't be harsh. I just don't buy him. There's much about politics I don't buy in many spheres, but as a man, and I genuinely mean this, I've said this to you, your party, everybody stopped listening to your party, you've been honest about that. And as a Brit, I was a Labour supporter, but I wanted them to be a success. And from day one, I cannot... We go back doing this 2 years, Matthew. Do you remember the pensioners thing straight away? Then the waspy women, then the farmers, then the fuel, then this, then that. Incompetence doesn't cover it. Well, it really doesn't.
It's who does he stand for? What does he stand for?
What does he stand for?
If you're willing to throw our veterans under the bus, if you're willing to do the pensioners in on the winter fuel allowance, if where does it stop? Who is he on the side of? The only people he's on the side of is the benefits claimants, who are the only people benefiting from this government.
Can we have this? Because you were
tax at record levels. It's appalling.
Can we have this discussion? Because you were in the Commons till late last night voting on this. I mean, I was quite vocal yesterday, and I'm not going to apologise for it because I'm going to continue. There's much about many governments I disagree with. How, in the name of God, anybody or any government can look itself in the mirror when it's saying to people who donned a uniform and were told by politicians to go and deal with troubles in Northern Ireland, and they had their authority, right? They were given rules and orders. They wore a uniform. They went to Northern Ireland. They faced all that 30 years ago. And we've got a government that not only wants to prosecute them for what they might or might not have done, but gives immunity to the IRA. Sorry, there's much about this government and the world that annoys me. That is despicable. Despicable.
It is the law of the law. These people signed up for king and country, put their lives on the line. They didn't just take on a grotty job. They put their lives on the line to protect this country. And what is this government giving them? A slap in the face. People who are now in care homes across the country waiting to see if a letter arrives summoning them to court. It's the law of the law. It doesn't get any worse.
We had James Cartledge on yesterday, your Shadow Defence Secretary, brilliant, and it really resonated with so many people. It wasn't going to be the main bit of news, but so many people. As a veteran, much as I walk down the street and I say, I've told you where I live, and there's a veteran every Saturday, and he's been thrown out of where he was living for some illegal migrants, and the guy gave 14 years. Now we're going to possibly prosecute him because he... And somebody made a really good point yesterday, Matt, which was our armed forces go into combat or to war or into areas to do with stuff because they're given that rule by politicians. So maybe we should be looking at the government of the day and prosecuting them, whether it was Tory or Labour, I don't know. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah, if something's wrong with the decisions that have been made, hold the people who made the decisions to account. But it's literally the law of the law. How could you, if you got into politics thinking you're going to benefit the world, you go in there and do our own veterans in, put them through this. I liken it very much to, you remember the trouble at the Bell Hotel in Epping, and the local council took the side of the people and said, look, locally in the community there are illegal migrants living in a hotel, there's been accusations of some attacks, we want to close it down. And the council won that, and the government went to court to turn back what the local council said, and I'll never forget the line, the rights of migrants surpass the rights of the local community. So in this instance, maybe I'll get told off, we're hearing from Hermer and Starmer, the rights of the IRA are more important than the rights of British men and women who donned a uniform and did what they were told for the United Kingdom. They're the one people that the government should be looking after. If you look at the US and the way that they look after the veterans, it puts us to shame, actually, that we do not protect these guys, support these guys in life, never mind allowing them to be dragged through the court.
I would never tell a political party how to go, but let me tell you, there's many things that people are angry about. That veterans thing is utterly huge. 623 0344 499 1000 for your calls or your voice notes. Text to 87222. It's Tuesday morning. This is the home of common sense. It's Talk Breakfast. Morning, Wayne.
Morning, Jessa. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Let's hope they finally get to skewer Keir Starmer today. He's not exactly the Teflon Don, but what he is a little non-stick frying pan. Let's hope that fails today. Let's hope they skewer him. Keep up the good work, Mr. Coyle. Have a great show.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
Well, you've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 6:25 is Tuesday morning. It's the 28th of April. A very good morning and welcome to Talk Breakfast. This is, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, what are you doing this morning? Are you on the way? Are you on the way back? Are the kids giving you grief? Are you waiting to get in the bathroom? Talk is the station. Morning to Mark, my mate down on the south coast. I can't give you his second name because quite well known, but he's listening, and he said he used to listen to TalkSport, which he loves, but he's completely obsessed with what's going on. Morning to Robbie as well. Good man in Newcastle. Matt Vickers is with us on the day that Keir Starmer, Slippery Starmer, is doing his best to avoid an ethics investigation, the Privileges Committees. There'll be a vote later on. Take us through that. When is that vote?
So that's this afternoon. We're going to see Labour MPs march through with a whip, apparently.
Can we just explain to people? A whip means they're told how to vote.
You're told how to vote. If you want to be in our gang, you need to vote with the party on this one. That basically is where we're at. So depending on what the issue is.
What happens if you don't? What happens if, like Carl Turner, who I love, really is on the show at 7, says, actually, morally and ethically, I can't have this?
Well, the independent MP that is Carl Turner, who lost the whip because he stood up for what was right. So that's the threat they face. We've seen a few of them dare to do it before, where they broke the line on winter fuel. A few of them had the spine and the backbone to break the line. We'll see what happens today. I think you'll find, in the same way that Keir Starmer woke up to work this morning and his number one priority is keeping hold of that job, a lot of these Labour MPs are thinking in the same way. They put principles at the door and go and vote as they're told.
But there's my point. At what point, this is presumably, the turning point will come when they go, loyalty, 3-line whip aside, my job is not going to be saved if this man's still in number 10. Because it really annoys me, not in defence of Boris Johnson, that he faced a Privileges Committee, as it turned out correctly, so the Tory MPs realised what was going on. But the Labour MPs, I mean, I take Roger from Wales. He says every Labour MP not voting for an inquiry is as guilty as the Prime Minister, in my mind, by assisting his lies.
Well, I think when the thing for the Labour Party is they've got this spineless, pathetic Prime Minister who is doing untold damage to our economy, putting people out of work, businesses going to the wall.
There's plenty of transparency for working people.
But there's the choice, isn't there? Because actually, as pathetic as this guy is, if they get rid of him, they're then faced with the choice of Ed Miliband, Angela. Do you know there isn't any good choices in there?
But that to me, forgive me if I sound, that is not a reason to keep him on.
No.
Because if we're talking about morality and we're talking about what's right and wrong, and we're talking about a man who made a big thing about how the Tories were engulfed in sleaze and Boris Johnson, then you live and die by what you say, don't you?
He's one of the biggest hypocrites walking, but the reality is those Labour MPs are voting to save their own necks today, and they seem to think, however bad this guy is, as the most unpopular Prime Minister ever, they still think the other options could be worse.
It's really interesting. I must say, I do love Julian, who says, morning, Jeremy. Did Slippery Starmer just say political stunt? I think he inadvertently almost hit the nail on the head. Brilliant. Morning, Mark.
Boris got thrown out partly because eating birthday cake on his birthday in his house with the people that have been working with all day. Well, Starmer drove, I think it was to Durham for a local Labour Party thing where he, ate food and drank, much the same way. This man is constantly throwing stones at everyone while blaming everyone else for his ineptitude, and seems to get away with it over and over again. That there's so much hypocrisy going on here. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the man should walk away for his own sanity more than anything else.
It's really interesting. The level of anger, I've not seen it. Sean in Gloucester, just imagine what the Ayatollah and Herma would do if the rape gangs were military personnel. They'd be investigated immediately. Absolutely. He talks, doesn't he, Starmer, about how that interview with Cathy Newman from the Sky, it's a political stunt today. I'm getting on with running the country. No, you're not. No, you're not. The fuel is at its heaviest. We're absolute pariahs on the international stage. We've got no military. We've got our borders are literally open as far as I can see it. The NHS is an absolute show. I missed out the other word deliberately. Education is run by people who seem to have an ideology. Nothing works. Everything's more expensive, and people are being taxed to the back so that people who don't want to work can sit on their backsides. How in the name of God does that tell me he's improved this country? It's got to sound like a politician. It's quite easy, isn't it?
It is devastating. Everything is going the wrong way. Yeah. His one priority is to hold the keys to numbers. I mean, unemployment numbers, 18%, I think it is, more people unemployed.
Even you're squeaking.
Businesses going to the wall, destroying the economy. These are people's lives, these people who put out of work, because of the choices this man is making. He's not even thinking about that because he's too busy trying to hold on to that nice
Billy
piece
from
of real
Fareham,
estate.
new listener, new viewer. Starmer is a desperate man. Never seen a politician lie, gaslight and deflect like him. Sad thing is Cabinet and MPs blindly following out of fear. He needs to go. Labour need to go. All the electorate want is someone who puts Britain first. Have a great day. I think that's absolutely true. Morning, JK. David Aberdeen. So Starmer's just thrown his wife under the bus by saying she gives him advice. For God's sake, man, just go. Do you remember when David Davis, a man who I respect enormously, stood up in the House of Commons when Johnson's career was hanging by a thread, and he just looked down and just went, for God's sake, man, just go. And it was very soon after. It infuriates me, the double standards. I don't know whether he's lied 7 times. Dan Hodges has said that. I have to give everybody the chance to have their say, right? But there's just, you look at him, I'm only going on what I see. And I see a right slippery man, and I completely agree with all the messages this morning. I don't buy you, mate. I don't buy you. Not because you're from the Labour Party. I bought Tony Blair for a while. I bought Margaret Thatcher, right? I bought Tony Blair for a while. I don't buy this man.
I think it's the fact that he's there on the record, having been caught out. You can make the decisions about how appalling his judgment is in appointing Peter Mandelson, but he's there on the record. He stood at that dispatch box and said full due process had been followed. He said that appropriate vetting had been followed. And then we hear, black and white, that they had objected. UK Security and Vetting had said, this is bad news, boys. You need to think again. And he went ahead anyway. And he's there on the record having said it. He misled Parliament. He spoke utter crap to the British public, told them one thing when it was entirely untrue.
You imagine their reaction today when Labour the MPs, if we believe it to be true, will fall in behind him and he'll survive. This isn't... The thing is, I don't know whether people tell him the truth or they're too scared to. I tell him the truth if I ever met him. You're out of time, mate. The British public, the silent majority, much with Johnson, have lost... They don't believe you. So you can carry on. I always believe that the British public... for all our faults and for all our weaknesses, we're quite good at getting things right, essentially. We do have our own minds, and I think you know when you've lost the British public. I really do think you know that.
I think one of the perverse situations with this one is there's always... Prime Ministers always have a majority of sorts. He does have a ridiculously huge parliamentary majority.
And he's the most insecure Prime Minister we've had for years.
Well, he's in that situation, but he's got this rump of backbench MPs who are willing to follow him like lemmings over the edge of a cliff, and they're not willing to stand up for him. The end result is the country has to continue tolerating this because a lot of Labour MPs are worried about their jobs. Never have we seen MPs on this scale willing to blindly follow a Prime Minister who has completely lost touch with the public.
Completely agree. Listen, morning, Anna, how are you?
Morning, Jess. Anna, sorry. Much as I admire Matt coming onto your show, I want you both to stop saying the following sentence. Starmer destroyed Boris Johnson. No, he didn't. Boris Johnson destroyed himself as the Tories destroyed our country. And I admire Matt for sitting there week in, week out, trying to defend the Tories. They made mistakes. We're rebuilding. Lessons have been learned.
But it's true. To be fair, and I'm not... I love opinion, Anna. Matt has been that vocal for 2 years and could not apologise anymore. And I'm not just sticking up with my mates. It's fact, right?
I think. Do you know what? I'm always the first to tell you what previous government got wrong. Actually, very happy to. But the world is a very different place in the UK now. We had near record levels of employment before this government came to office.
At least you didn't say it was because of COVID, because that would have sent me right.
Businesses were opening. People had opportunities. Our education system was doing well. We had a record number of police on the streets. We've now ended up in a situation where nearly 18% more people.
But you did, but the government, the 14, you messed it up.
There was mistakes. There was mistakes, but there was also lots of things that were done correctly as well. But the one thing
did that message get lost with the mistakes that were made?
I think. Do you know what? Press coverage is press coverage. I can point to you the things that they got wrong, that we should have got right.
What are they? What are the big things that the Tories...
I think on immigration we didn't move fast enough. I do think we were moving in the right direction. We put into law the fact that if you arrive in this country illegally, if you break in, you should be detained and deported. Did we get that across the line quickly enough? Did we make it happen? We were way too slow. We got held up in the courts.
Would you agree now, like me and many Tories, old-fashioned Tories, that one of the other big things that you can blame on Boris Johnson is this was a man who didn't do Brexit, who moved to the centre, who became actually far more green than any person ever believed he would do, and his priorities, the traditional, true Conservative priorities about, you know, policemen and women on the streets, secure borders, all that good thing, defence, all those things, it wasn't a priority. That, for me, is also massively important where the Tories went wrong.
You do have to look at some of the things. There is contrast. So you can, when we talk about law and order and policing, we put more police on the streets than there's ever been.
Theresa May cut them all, though. Theresa May cut thousands.
We still got to the point under Boris where there were more police on the streets than before.
Give you that.
We toughened up sentencing. Some of these vile people who commit some of the worst crimes, we decided to lock them up for longer. We're now seeing this government backpedaling. They are releasing prisoners onto the streets early. We're talking about retail crime yesterday. People aren't going to prison now if they're serving less than a year.
Yesterday he said he's going to sort out shoplifting.
He's going to sort out. His
morning,
MPs voted against. We had a choice in the House of Commons to say if you commit more than 3 offences of shoplifting or assaults on retail workers, we'll ban you, we'll tag you, or we'll issue you a curfew so that those retail workers who've got to work every day can be protected. He's not voted against it. It's appalling. It's
pathetic. They voted against that?
They voted against the idea.
Why?
You tell me. Utterly pathetic.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? And a great message, though. JK, Matt, I suspect that once Starmer and Trump are out of office, I suspect the special relationship will return to normality. Overnight, the King and Queen who landed in DC show what real public service looks like, not the self-service demonstrated by our Prime Minister. Have we got a new national anthem? Because every time the PM appears at an event, the crowd seem to sing Casablanca. Well, I think they call it Casablanca. You didn't realise that when you put that through, did you? Cliffy, I love it. Lisa's in Bolton, good morning. Absolutely nothing will happen to Starmer today. All this coverage is a waste of time. He makes me feel sick. So she's basically feeling sick and my programme's a waste of time. After the break, we'll talk more about that stateside trip. The King and Queen landed in Washington, D.C. and was served cucumber sandwiches by Donald Trump and his wife, Melania. Back in 3. Cheers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. He really is a man of many talents. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. During that break, he's writing a speech he's going to make in the House of Commons later about your local fire service.
My local fire service, that under this Labour government, is facing very, very tough times. Is likely to be cuts to frontline firemen. We're going to see a reduction in the number of fire people, whatever you want to call them. Fire brigade persons, firemen, cuts to appliances, frontline. But this is one of the smallest forces in the UK. It faces unprecedented challenge. So A, it's small, so it doesn't have the economies of scale. B, we've got a huge industrial base, and C, we've got social deprivation that's off the charts. And as a result, a fact my area won't be proud of, we are the arson capital of Europe. There are more deliberately set fires in my part of the world than anywhere else in Europe, and we're seeing a cut to the number of firemen on the front line, despite the fact we're paying record levels.
No, but I think you're being unfair, because Keir Starmer is doing well by working people and doing well by the country, isn't he? Karen doesn't think so. Morning, Cass.
Hi, Jezza. No, I think they should leave Keir Starmer right where he is, because then the country will see how bad it's really going to get under him, and it's going to fall spectacularly apart before our eyes. Don't want Angela Rayner, certainly don't want Shabana Mahmood, don't want anybody else in that position. Leave that liar right where he is, because it'll be the end of liar bar forever.
Brilliant. The thing is, whilst I don't sort of disagree with her, because you made the point earlier, what could come afterwards is frightening, right? Is how more destroyed will this nation be in 3 years under this man? Can we just go back quickly before we move to the Royal Tour to this Foreign Affairs Select Committee today? I'd like some sort of insight from you. Dame Emily Thornberry is the head. They've called two people up. Sir Philip Barton, who was the head of the Foreign Office Civil Service, then he was replaced by Sir Ollie Robbins, who last week while I was away made a big thing about it. From the moment I got in the job, it was pressure to push this through. I got a phone call one day, he said, from Morgan McSweeney saying, just get it done. Morgan McSweeney follows him. Do you think both, neither, or one of the two will stick the knife into Keir Starmer today?
Well, we've seen Keir Starmer who's willing to make anybody the fall guy for his mistakes. McSweeney is another person who's felt the wrath, who's been forced out because of Starmer's mistakes. So he's probably going to have a few things to say. But the other huge revelation that came out of the Ollie Robbins interview last week was about Matthew Doyle. Because not only have we seen Mandelson appointed, despite his links to vile, evil paedophiles, Matthew Doyle, former comms director at Number 10, was made a member of the House of Lords, despite the fact he also had links to paedophiles. And what came out the Ollie Robbins discussion last week was the fact that they were told to have a look to see if there was any ambassadorial positions that they could give to Matthew Doyle to help him on his way, because he's no longer going to have a job at Number 10. It's the law of the law.
I've just looked at myself on the camera. I am, in fact, turning into my dad, who obviously is dead, so I probably look better than he does right now. But I'm just making the point. I looked like my dad then. What are we doing? I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's remind ourselves. I was away. Let's remind ourselves of some of the evidence that Sir Ollie Robbins gave last week, because it was utterly damning. They're laughing about the fact my dad's dead. I think that's quite harsh. Play the tape.
My office, the Foreign Secretary's office, were under constant pressure. There was an atmosphere of constant chasing. When will this? Daily phone calls. I couldn't say for certain daily, but I mean certainly very frequent, from private office to private office. Has this been delivered yet? Never any interest, as far as I recall, in whether, but only an interest in when.
That was pretty damning. Could I just say I found out why the gang were laughing through the glass when I said that I look like my dad. He's no longer here. They said, has your dad got Botox, or did your dad have Botox? And I said, which has made them all drop their tea, he probably needs a bit of it now. 17 minutes to 7, 0344. He'd love that. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Do you think they'll turn on him or not?
I think there's a good chance. I mean, the problem is, well, these guys are professionals. They're very
they're both
sensible.
being shafted.
They go on to do. You know, there's just senior civil servants who've served in whatever roles. They're probably professional in outlook. They're not going to squeal like the average person on the street.
Well, what about McSweeney? What lies in wait for him? I mean, we heard yesterday the police have gone into Number 10, and I mean, here's another thing, by the way, which I love about Dan Hodges about the phone thing. I'll put this to you as the deputy chairman of the Tory party. So when he has the phone nicked of the two, and that happened to be the government one, and that happened to be the one where the I can retrace the messages was switched off, and all of those things. If I sent you a message today, or I sent you 5 messages, and then I'm McSweeney and my phone's nicked and I've turned the messages off, they're still on your phone, aren't they? So presumably, if Number 10 is covering anything up, and I don't know if they are, the police will get involved with that. But McSweeney, maybe he's the fall guy, maybe he isn't. Where does he go in terms of career from this point? Has he got anything to lose? I mean, that is the question. We're going to find out whether some deal's been done, whether some conversation's been had, or whether he's going to sing like a canary. Yeah, that could be the thing. And what we need, the one thing that will be devastating about today is we do deserve the answers. This privileges investigation should go ahead, so you could actually get the guy to answer the questions. The fact that our MPs were willing to make Boris do this and answer the questions and do the right thing, that's sort of the standard that the last government might have had and the last set of MPs had.
These guys are going to walk through this lobby today to allow him to avoid scrutiny. That's a terrible thing.
Another new voice. Is this Matt? Is this a new voice? Good morning, Matt.
Hello, Jezza. It's Matt in Warrington, loading a van. Still sounding grumpy like I was yesterday. Starmer's wife wants him to stay in politics because the reason is she don't want the bloody boring so-and-so round the house because he'd drive her up the wall. He'd sell her down the river, wouldn't he? Darling, you shouldn't be doing it like that. It's against process. You being court of human rights won't like us doing that, laying the table that way. No, I'm going to prosecute you. Oh, God. And these Labour MPs, I hope they're all looking on LinkedIn or somewhere like that for new jobs because they're all going to be out of a job in the next couple of years. And they can't smell the coffee. It just gets worse every day, doesn't it? I'm sick and tired of hearing about him. Can someone just sack him? Just tell him to go away? Because we just need to get rid of the buffoon. He's a whopper, a Band 1, Class 1 whopper. Anyway, Jez, a great show. Ta-ra.
A Class 1 whopper. Very quickly, Bill says, JK and Matty, all these lies are down to one thing. They used to say you never see a poor bookmaker. Now they say you never see a poor politician. Money, money, money. Do you see a poor politician? You're loaded, aren't you? You only do this because
I don't know about that.
Yeah, oh, he's got no money. Oh, you're going to start moaning. 7:15. Let's just move on to the other big news story of the day. It's over every paper. I love this in The Sun. I'm not going to... it's fantastic on the front page. The King and Queen landed in Washington, D.C. United Kingdom. Don't look at me like that. 0344 499 1000. Soft diplomacy at its best, and I think we should salute the King and Queen. This man is ill, and he's travelled across the pond with his wife, Queen Camilla, to well, it's a 4-day state visit, and later on today we'll be talking about this in some detail. We've got royal correspondents across the day and in this show as well. He will be talking to Congress, where his job is to somehow mend what is a quite fractured personal relationship, certainly between Trump and Starmer. But of course the special relationship, the sharing of secrets militarily or whatever, that continues on. He's going to talk about the assassination attempt from 2 days ago. He's going to stick up for the British Navy, or the one ship that we've got, after the president dubbed UK aircraft carriers as toys. By the way, actually, can I just say, we haven't done an update. We've got a migrant tracker. I wanted an HMS Dragon tracker. Has it made it to Cyprus yet? I mean, this is the only boat we had, and HMS dragging your feet. Before I went on holiday, it was a week at going, union rules, and then it got stuck somewhere because the sanitation problem. War's finished, by the way. Can we just find out where HMS dragging your feet is? I don't know how you stick up for the Navy, but from a royal point of view, they'll do a lot better. I find it ironic they're doing Starmer's job for him. I really do.
You look at this and it actually just tells you about the value that the royal family has. We've got this relationship with the US that is seismically important to us. It's important to us for trade, it's important to us for defence, it's important to us for intelligence. It's served this country for generations. The interests of this country, we have been served for generations as a result of our relationship with the US. Starmer's come and absolutely trashed it. When leadership was required, when we needed that decision about allowing the US to use our bases, they got dilly-dally, did the delay. And the end result is he's trashed that relationship. Because of the royal family, we're able to send somebody in there to represent the wider United Kingdom, engage the US and tell the US we're still an ally, we still care, we still think that you're important to us, and we want to work with you going forward. Without the royal family, we wouldn't really have a mechanism to do that. It tells you why it's been supported.
That phrase that Dickie Arbiter came up with yesterday, soft diplomacy, is really, really important. There will be many people who are anti the monarchy, with all the problems with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Fergie and Harry and Meghan. But at its core, what the royal family does and what it brings in return with how much a president, for example, costs and doesn't bring in is extraordinary. And it'll be interesting to see, because Donald Trump, I mean, I've always believed with Donald Trump, if you stood up to Donald Trump, then you'd be all right. Starmer, I remember that first, when he went to Washington, he was first elected, and I always tell this story because it just resonates in my head. He dropped his papers, and Starmer immediately got on his knees and started picking them up, and I thought, oh my God. Charles will say what he needs to say. He'll make a few points, and fair play to him. The personal relationship will outlast those two anyway.
Yeah, it's a relationship that should be built on respect and trust, and they've lost respect for us as a result of the actions of our Prime Minister.
But I also maintain that if I'd been the Prime Minister and he'd said to me, are you joining the war? I said, no, but you can use my bases. That's what the British people want, and you'll have to deal with that, big boy. Yeah. And that would be fine. Caroline Levitt, the press secretary in the White House, the one who's actually just finishing a job, she's about to have her second child. This was interesting. She talked yesterday about the hatred in politics on the back of that third assassination attempt. By the way, the guy that did that, Cole Allen, has been charged with assassination overnight. More of that on the show today. Caroline Levitt.
Nobody in recent years has faced more bullets and more violence than President Trump. This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party, and even some in the media. This hateful and constant and violent rhetoric directed at President Trump day after day after day for 11 years has helped to legitimize this violence and bring us to this dark moment. Those who constantly, falsely label and slander the president as a fascist, as a threat to democracy, and compare him to Hitler to score political points are fueling this kind of violence. The left-wing cult of hatred against the president and all of those who support him and work for him has gotten multiple people hurt and killed, and it almost did so again this weekend.
Can I just use that as a frame to something that we were talking about yesterday, and I want to ask you. We've heard, quite rightly, listen, I'm being straight, about some barbaric madness on the far right. We've seen that. But it is also time to point out, and this is not defending Donald Trump, there is madness on the far left as well, isn't there? And I think that is part of the debate that third assassination attempt has created, which I think is a good thing.
Well, you look at Charlie Kirk, you look at the attempts on Trump's life. It's actually quite scary that people who have opinions are put at such level of risk. Terrifying. What does it mean for public debate that if people go out there and say something that's disagreed with, that their life is attempted on so many times?
And it's quite interesting if you scale that back and you talk about this country and whatever your I've said it many times, I don't care what your political persuasion is. I'll have a debate with you and then we'll get on with our lives. But there is a feeling amongst those on the left, I always quote my daughter on this, well, that's rubbish, you should be cancelled, or Churchill was this, or Thatcher was that. But you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, but that's my opinion, you're old-fashioned and you're wrong. I've always thought debate should be two-way, and I think, listen, I've got no time for the far right at all, and it infuriates me when people that talk about, I don't know, secure borders or a good military or good police or low taxation is apparently demonised as far right. No, that's what Starmer said after Southport. There was a lot of bad people, but there were also a lot of people who were terrified about what was going on. But we have to acknowledge the far left, or many people on the left, don't want to debate. It's their way or the highway, and then it goes beyond that, and that's quite frightening.
Well, you get them sat on social media, these lefty trolls who are talking to each other all day and telling you how wrong the world is. And those people who go out and work hard and do the right thing, and how terrible they are for having real opinions about life and being not too afraid to express them. It's quite a scary situation. I think social media doesn't really help us in this front.
Dave, really good point. I wanted to ask you in the chamber last night, the Veterans Minister, Al Cairns, who was a quite senior serving officer and is now the Security Minister, he wasn't in the Commons, was he?
You do wonder where people might go when it comes down to votes like this. So we'll see, for instance,
he was slaughtered, excuse the pun, actually, by many veterans saying, you were one of us and you've let us down. Now, I've read and heard that he's been on resignation watch, that he actually doesn't agree with this policy. Yesterday he was away on official business. What does that tell you?
Well, we'll see how many are away today. People might be busy or engaged in the constituencies and let slip rather than allowing them to vote against him on this privileges vote. Something like that, though, people do need to make a stand. If people who are appointed
so your job as Security Minister is more important to you, or an Armed Forces Minister, than what you believe in. Listen to Dave in Aberdeen. He said, do you know, this makes my bloody blood boil? He said last night, at the weekend we had a charity night on Saturday to raise money for combat stress, because the help we get from government is worse than useless. It's disgusting.
These people who deserve... I mean... the US, we should just go over there, pick up what the US do for their veterans, because it's completely different to what we do. They give people the respect that they deserve. People who put their lives on the line for their country given the respect, we just aren't doing it.
Diane in Bedford. Jez, my son joined the forces just shy of his 18th birthday. He's now 24, and even he is now considering leaving due to the disgusting government and the possible threat of the door knocking when he's in his latter years, even though he's been told he's already on target for promotion to sergeant. It seems illegal migrants get more rights than forces personnel in this country, says Diane in Bedford, who's probably going to be called far right by somebody on the left, but she's absolutely spot on. Her son joined up to fight for king and country, and now, terrified that he might be prosecuted in 30 years, is going to give up. Disgusting.
It's heartbreaking. It's actually it's an act of national self-harm. What message does it send to those youngsters who are thinking about signing up to serve this country and put themselves in harm's way? It just all going the wrong way.
So later today, after you've done your thing about the fire service, and do you know they're called water lilies by the ambulance and police service? That's quite interesting. Something like that. You are going to be there for that select committee vote. Should he appear before the Privileges Committee? Absolutely, and anybody else as well. But you don't think it'll get through? I don't think it'll get through. I don't think I mean, these guys haven't shown any backbone this far. It would be very surprising if all of a sudden, after doing the pensioners over, after doing the veterans over, you're going to take a swipe at the Prime Minister and get him held to account. If you're willing to put your principles at the door on all these other issues, you're not going to take a stand on this one, are you? Really interesting. And then from 9 o'clock, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Sir Philip Barton, who used to be the head of the Foreign Office Civil Service, and Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. Oh, yes, he's lost his phone. He's going to be on. We're going to do that live. Matty, what a day you've got. Thank you. Full steam ahead. Really appreciate it. We love having you. They love you. They love you coming on because at least you have the courage to stick your head above the parapet. I'm not sure about the Robert Jenrick tie, though. Did Robert Jenrick give you that tie? I'll find a more exciting tie for next week. No, I quite prefer that. The green's quite... It's quite country. Or maybe you're joining Zach Polanski. We got to. Oh, sorry. No, is there not a defection to the Greens on the car? Yeah, watch this space. News at 7, and Carl Turner, who lost the whip for standing up against Keir Starmer, is on this show. His reaction to whether Starmer should face an investigation in front of the Privileges Committee after the news at 7, my friends, which is next on Talk Breakfast. Thank you, Matt.
I hope I wouldn't have used that. Well, certainly I don't remember trying to get any job for my mates.
Can you get a job? Can you help get a job for ex's mates? But don't tell the Foreign Secretary.
I don't think it's completely surprising that the Prime Minister would be so sensitive about the way in which he was dealing with a member of his senior team, and particularly a Director of Communications who's in minute-by-minute contact with the media, that he would want that kept to a very, very tight group of people at the time.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Mandelson vetting an appointment. At the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong.
The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. The position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
This was not due process. Everyone knows the price of misleading the House. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility and go?
Yeah! Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. Before Mandelson took up his post, UKSB recommended with red flags that clearance should be denied, and there was high concern that was not brought to my attention or the attention of the Foreign Secretary at the time or subsequently is a very serious error of judgment. She rushed to judgment as she always did, just like the Iran war. Mr. Speaker, I was elected by the British people because they let the country down for 14 long years. Whatever she says, whatever noise they make, nothing is going to distract me from delivering for our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. Just gone 7 o'clock, Tuesday the 28th of April. You would talk breakfast talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brett, welcome to the show. There's so much going on wherever you are in the UK this morning, up and at it, on the way back from a night shift, trying to get the kids sorted with breakfast, heading to the gym maybe. Morning, Den. 0344 499 1000 is the only number you need. You can leave a voice note for Christian. You can make a live call. You can also text 87222. It's your show. We need your views on the news of the day. And it's a big, big day for Keir Starmer, a man who has to face two things today. One is his former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, and the former head of the Civil Service and the Foreign Office, Sir Philip Barton, will be hauled in front of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. We'll do that from 9. Will they, or will they not, stick the knife into Keir Starmer as Ollie Wobbins did last week? On top of which, you heard from Matt Vickers, their big vote, forced through by Badenoch. She says, and if you read the excellent Dan Hodges in the Mail, she says he has misled Parliament and the British people on numerous occasions, and he should, very much like he pleaded for Boris Johnson, be put in front of that committee to answer the charges. He says, well, I'll tell you what he says. He says it's a political stunt. This is him yesterday with the Sky's Cathy Newman. Watch this.
If you're so confident that your conduct is so very different to Boris Johnson, why not just let the Privileges Committee investigate, and you know you'll be proven right? Why are you whipping your MPs to vote against this call for an investigation?
Well, because it's a stunt.
And you are whipping your MPs against it.
Well, we've got a meeting of the PLP later on tonight where that's usually determined on a Monday evening. But it is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country.
Yeah, well, what matters to millions of people across the country is whether their Prime Minister's a barefaced liar and whether he's doing a good job by them. And most of us would look at the way the country is and think, you're not doing very well on that front. James Cleverly, actually, one of the front bench Tories who ran for leader against Badenoch and didn't win, made a really salient point last night when he said that if you have to whip your MPs, which is in effect, peeps, you know, you have to vote this way, otherwise you'll lose your job. If he has to whip them, Surely he's got something to hide. If he's got nothing to hide, he'd say, have a vote. The Tories, we should give them credit here. Wonderful, wonderful thing they put out last night. I wonder who Starmer's talking about here. Push the button.
Prime Minister resorting to lies. The Prime Minister lied. He lied to this country. If he misled Parliament, he must resign. It's no good him trying to blame politicians in general. There's one person at the centre of this. Look, there are only two possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers. Come off it. The public have made up their mind. I think the facts speak for themselves. He then lied about what had happened. The Prime Minister lied. I genuinely think now that it's in the national interest that he goes. The ministerial code says that ministers who knowingly mislead the House should resign. Why is he still here?
Interesting question. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. The Labour Party, for once in their miserable lives, have a choice to do the right thing today, but they won't, because they need a fall guy for after the elections, and that fall guy is Keir Starmer. Then the clamour will be for Angela Rayner. Now, replacing Starmer with Angela Rayner is like pooing your own pants and only changing your top. You're still going to be walking around in the very same mess that you created in the first place.
Sorry, I had no idea. Brilliant. Here's a man I have so much time and so much admiration for. The now independent MP for Hull East, Carl Turner, who dared to stand up and say to his government and his Prime Minister, I don't agree with what you're saying about the jury trials, and they stripped him of Labour membership. Carly, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Jerry. I'm just getting over the pooing the pants analogy.
Okay. You know, they never tell me, Carl, what's in it, and I'm just left like, and you just deal with it, Carl, it's fine. We all know now, we had a really interesting chat before I went away about what you'd gone through and what happened to you. First up, genuinely, how are things with you? How is life as an independent MP for Hull East?
I feel liberated, Jeremy. It gives me the opportunity to ask the Speaker for an inquiry on the Prime Minister, for one example. I mean, look, I think the Prime Minister ought to be facing this inquiry. Why shouldn't he? I don't think he deliberately misled Parliament, actually, because I know the guy. But I think there is a very big difference between what he said at Prime Minister's questions last week and what the evidence of Ollie Robbins was. And I think there is inconsistency enough to require an investigation of the Standards and Privileges Committee, and that's what he should be doing.
And it's quite interesting, isn't it? In terms of that montage, I know it's slightly tongue-in-cheek from the Tories, but it's a very salient point. You know, your party, ex-party, went on and on and on until Boris Johnson was hauled in front of that Privileges Committee. I had Dan Hodges from the Mail yesterday, Carl, saying he's got proof that he's lied 7 times to the House of Commons and to the British public, and he has to face the reality. But what's really interesting is the Labour MPs who are coming in, understandably, I think, for a lot of stick this morning. They are being whipped, and I've explained to people, you know, what that means. You must vote that way. If you don't, presumably, you'll be treated the way you were treated. What does that say? Because if you've got nothing to hide, why would you whip your MPs into how to vote?
Well, I think it smacks of desperation, because the convention is not to whip matters of the House. So if it's a procedural matter, the whip shouldn't apply. Now, I'm not saying this is a precedent. It's not. There's been lots of examples where MPs have been whipped to do what the government need them to do on House matters. But in my view, it should have been a free vote. I just think it'd have been better off facing the committee. I think he would have cleared himself, to be honest. I do think he would have. But the reality is they're looking for a contempt. And I don't think they'd have found something as clear as an actual deliberately misleading the House. But, you know, I think the stunt that the government talk about, I think it is a stunt to an extent, and I'll tell you for why. I think the trick here is watching Labour MPs going into the division lobby to block an inquiry on the Prime Minister who presented the Labour Party and his government to the election, or his would-be government to the election in 2024, as holier than thou. And I think people will find that very, very annoying. So if I was going in today with the intention of voting to block the inquiry, I'd expect to be inundated with emails saying, what on earth have you done that for?
And that's what I wanted to ask you, because that's fascinating. Presumably you today will vote for the inquiry, right?
Absolutely, categorically, yes.
And what about what about, Carl, your ex-colleagues? This is what I'm interested. Apart from how do they treat you now? Are you spurned, or do they all go, God, you lucky man, you're free of all of this? What's the feeling that you get?
Well, I think there's a bit of sympathy for me amongst colleagues. I think the new intake in 2024 are a bit confused. They've probably hardly heard of me, many of them. And then they see that I'm opposed to jury trials, and I'm fairly aggressive, if I'm honest, about my opposition, because I don't think any government should be doing it. If it was a Tory government, I'd be saying the same things. Yeah. What's terribly disappointing to me is that it's a Labour government, especially when the leader of the Labour Party, the Prime Minister, a human rights lawyer, campaigned between 1997 and, as I understand it, 2007, to do away with single judge trials in Northern Ireland, yet he's now expecting people like me to vote to bring them into England and Wales. I think is absolutely ludicrous and fairly offensive to me anyway.
I completely agree, and I've said before that the thing that you do, which, and please don't take this in any way because it's meant as a massive compliment, you remind me of the old-fashioned MP. You could listen to MPs of yesteryear, whether you agreed with them or not, but you could tell in their heart and their guts they believed in what they were saying. I'm sick to death of talking to politicians who won't open their mouths until somebody next to them has whispered in their ear what a focus group's telling them would be the right answer. You want conviction politicians, people that make mistakes, but people who just genuinely believe in what they believe in. And with you, pal, I completely agree about the jury thing. Do you think your ex-colleagues will walk through like sheep and do what Starmer's whips tell them to do? Do you think any will walk in the opposite lobby and be punished? How do you see it going?
I think we've got 404 Labour MPs. I think we've lost a few because I think we had 412 at the election, but some of us are suspended for one reason or another. I think the very vast majority will go into the division lobby and support the government in what is blocking, there's no easy way of putting this, it's blocking an inquiry into a member of the House of Commons. The member of the House of Commons just so happens to be the Prime Minister. That's the truth. He ought not to be treated differently to anybody else. His mandate is the same as my mandate. His electorate, his constituents elected him to represent them as their MP. There shouldn't be special treatment, in my view. Get on with it, face the music, answer the questions, and find out what the committee decides. I'll tell you something, there's an irony here, Jeremy, right? I'm tempted to say it in the debate later today. This is not a single judge. This is not a crusty old man who's been, publicly schooled, who's got a bit of an opinion on everything. This is a jury of lots of men and women who happen to be parliamentarians who are going to judge this impartially, listen to evidence and decide his fate. It ain't a judge who's got preconceived...
He doesn't like juries, though, does he, Carl? There's your irony. I get it. He doesn't like juries, does he? Probably that's the reason.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
So he's avoiding the jury of the House of Commons when, in fact, this Labour government, tragically, is expecting people who are accused of very serious crimes to face a single judge.
Yeah.
Mostly men, mostly white, mostly privately educated, to decide the fate, which would get them 3 years in custody. This ain't getting the Prime Minister prison. It's coming out with an answer. Did you lie or didn't you lie?
Do you know what's really interesting about...
face the music.
Completely agree. Do you know what's really interesting, what you said as well, before moving on, is when you said about how Labour MPs, if they blindly follow the whip and the rules and walk through, they're going to be inundated with emails. one of the biggest criticisms of this government, Carl, and I know you share this with me, is this seeming either complete disregard for the British people or what they think, or, I don't know, we've got a large majority, we know what's best for you. I've said this for months, and it's not personal. The silent majority feel very, very strongly that this man has lied, misled, changed tack, and has never had a real plan and has set out, there you have it in the mail, stitch up to save his own skin. It's become about staying in power. When I saw him with Cathy Newman talking about, you know, transparency is important and it's really important that we get on with saving the country. Well, like I said just now, we've got no military. Our borders are struggling under immense pressure because nobody can sort that out. We've got masses of new taxation. We've got a welfare bill, benefits bill that's going through the roof. We've got no police. There's crime. You can shoplift. Everything seems to be collapsing. The NHS and people go, oh, well, you can't blame it. Oh, the Tories. No, he's been in for 2 years with, in my opinion, very little plan. And today, here's the irony, and somebody said it earlier, Carl, today he should be worried about people's potholes, people's tax bills, people's crime, the safety of women. No, he sat bunkered down in number 10 trying to save his own skin, and that does not go unchecked or unmissed by the British people. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
Well, I agree. I agree with you, actually, I do. And I think it smacks of this, right, look, it looks as if Labour MPs are clambering to save the bacon of a Prime Minister, which I think is unnecessary, and that's what the public will hold against them.
Yeah.
That's just the reality, in my view. And I think it's a terrible mistake to be whipping MPs to block an inquiry of Parliament. It happened with Boris Johnson. I think it was different, Jeremy. I'll tell you why. Because in the Boris Johnson scenario, I'm not going to talk about culpability. I'm talking about the fact that the public couldn't stand the situation.
Yeah.
Why? Because they couldn't see the granny. But this has got cut through as well in a different way.
Yeah.
For the reasons that you've just stated, it's got cut through. The other thing is this, look, Ollie Robbins told the committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee last week, that there'd been questions about could he have a job? Could somebody get a job for Matt Doyle, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not like me sending you a text message if I had your number. I've not got it, but if I did. Jeremy, do us a favour. My kid's about to go to college.
Yeah.
And she quite fancies a couple of days in a studio to learn the ropes. Can she have a bit of experience for a CV? No, it wasn't that, Jeremy. This was, will you give this discredited person from number 10 Downing Street a job as an ambassador for the country?
It's unbelievable. Another one with...
And that guy we're talking about apparently denies knowing that they were asking for jobs for him.
Mate,
I mean...
it's just... you look at it and you go, could it be any more... I can't even... I'll use the wrong word. The second word, show. I don't think, and I wasn't as close to what was going on at the end of the Tory reigns as I am now doing this, but to me, the incompetence is unreal. Can I ask you touched upon it, today, Foreign Affairs Select Committee, 9 o'clock with Dame Emily Thornberry. Firstly, Sir Philip Barton, former head of the Civil Service and the Foreign Office before Ollie Robbins, who stuck the knife in last week, took over. He said he was under immense pressure to pass this, despite vetting. Also then, Morgan McSweeney, the man you were brave enough to say, I don't believe you lost your phone. I mean, God knows, you know what I think. You know what most people in this country think. Do you think, very quickly, Carl, either of them will stick the knife into the Prime Minister or not?
I doubt it, to be honest with you. I think there'll be evidence from the impartial witnesses which suggests that there was pressure put on. Because I think there was pressure put on. I don't think there was pressure put on to sort of do a job on the vetting procedure, but I think there was an awful lot of pressure put on in terms of the speed and haste in which they required the vetting and the entire process to be completed. Why? Because they wanted Mandelson in Washington in time for President Trump's inauguration. That was the reality. But why don't they just say that? Look, we wanted it doing fast.
Yeah.
We needed it fast. We didn't ring up and say, look, we don't care what the vetting says, but we need it to be done really quickly, please. I don't think there's much wrong with that, although, to be honest with you, If you contacted a judge and said, get on with his sentencing hearing, you'd be arrested within about 15 minutes of the phone call being made.
You'll do for certain. You are a proper politician. There's one question at the end, but I just want to ask you something. This infuriates me as much as anything that's come out of the last 2 years. Last night, MPs voted to continue the Troubles Bill into the next parliamentary session by 279 to 176, a majority of 103. This bill, people can talk to me, I will not change my mind. This says, thank you so much indeed 30 years ago for donning a uniform for King, at that point, Queen and country, for taking orders from your superiors who were sent to deal with the conflict in Northern Ireland by the elected government of the day. But whilst you're sitting in your care home with potentially a terribly minimal pension for what you've done, just wait for the knock on the door, because we might well prosecute you for what you've done whilst at the same moment giving immunity to the IRA. We talk about, Carl Turner, right, the silent majority. This is going to be far more important than I think anybody realises. This is disgusting, utterly disgusting in my opinion.
Listen, my area, Jeremy, is a very, very big area for recruitment into the military. Kids who leave school decide they want a career in the military because they want to do something for the country. They might not have performed terribly well at school or college, but they tend to join. That's what happens in East Hull, right? Working class area. And for me, frankly, this is upsetting. It really, truly is. I've made my point privately. I abstained last night, if I'm honest with you. I didn't go and vote against. It was a rollover. It's a procedure of the House, right? You're voting to say you don't want this to be included in the debates after the King's speech. There's a bit of a procedural fudge about it. That's why I just said I'm not going to bother to go and vote, right, last night. But what you ought to be looking at, if you don't mind me mentioning, we have 400 and I think 3 or 4 MPs now. The vote was, I think, 279. So an awful lot of people said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And that's the problem the government have got. It's running, Jeremy, on half a tank. MPs should be there enthusiastically, supporting the government. What, 2 years in? 2 years in, and you've got 100 and odd MPs who were only elected in 2024, and half of which last night, I've not crunched the numbers, but if I looked at it, you'd see that half of them haven't bothered to turn up.
Neither did the Armed Forces Minister, who happened to be away on business, Al Carnes, who's, of course, ex-military. Carl, you're amazing. We love having you on. Final question. If Starmer does eventually go, maybe after the locals or up until the party conference, million-dollar question. Who's likely to become the next Labour Prime Minister of this country, in your mind?
Well, look, people have got to get a grip of what's going on, Jeremy, in Parliament. The reality is this, look, they want Andy Burnham, I think. The biggest number of people fancy Andy Burnham as the leader of the Labour Party. That is just a fact, right? He's not in Parliament. How's he going to get in Parliament? Keir Starmer's not going to let him in. Not a chance.
In terms of you as a Labour supporter and the party you've believed in, if it's not Keir Starmer and you were still in the party, who would you want to be the next leader?
Out of the people who've been talked about, I forgive your last caller. I hope your last caller forgives me, but I'd have Angie Rayner every day of the week and twice on a Sunday, frankly. Why? Because she's normal. She's down to earth. You know, she's got a problem with the tax stuff, the HMIC and the stamp duty issue, but I think that's going to be resolved any time. Although, to be honest, I genuinely haven't spoken to Angie Rayner about the thing. She's never I don't think she speaks to people about it. A lot of people talk about her wanting to be the leader and PM, but she didn't have conversations that I'm aware of. If she is, she ain't speaking to me, and I'm a pal of hers. But I think Angie Rayner, because she's normal, right? She's not robotic. She doesn't read the Parliamentary Labour Party brief and repeat word for word what's said on the briefing. She might be smoking a vape in a dinghy or a canoe or something there. Fine on that caption. Fine. She's a normal person, Jeremy. Yeah. People are sick to death of people just reading it. What's it say? It says, I've got to say this. Oh, right, that'll go down well, because it never does. Constituents get in touch with you and say, why don't you say what you think?
Well, I tell you what I say, because I will continue to blow smoke, because I think you're one of the best that I've ever had on this show, and I'll tell you how much I respect you. If you were in my constituency, I wouldn't give a toss what party you stood for. I'd vote for you because you're a proper man, mate. Enjoy the independence. We'll have you on again very soon. We love having you on. Thank you so much indeed, Carl Turner, Independent MP Party. To me, epitomising what a politician should be. Has the courage, the cojones to say, I don't agree with the Troubles Bill. My community, my constituency has a lot of young men and women joining the armed forces. I don't believe, yes, my wife's a magistrate, but I don't believe, looking at the situation, that we should have non-jury trials. Yes, I think it's disgusting about the robotics of politics. Fantastic. Top man. Morning, Johnny.
Morning, Jez. It's Johnny in the van. Listening to the news a minute ago, I thought I heard something that Starmer said that I actually agreed with, surprisingly. But then I realised I misheard it, and he said that he was a political stunt. Never mind. Great show, mate.
The position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson. He was a member of the House of Lords, he was a Privy Councillor. The risks that attending his appointment were well known and had been made clear to the Prime Minister before appointment. Now, in the end, the FCDO insisted and put its foot down. I understand my predecessor had to be very firm in person. But that was a live debate at the point of announcement, and I think it's important to make that clear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, almost 7:30 on a Tuesday morning. You're welcome to Talk Breakfast. My name's Jeremy Kyle, not that you care. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. For all the people going, you're only talking about Starmer, it's the only big story in town apart from the King, abroad, of course, in the United States. Beginning of that 4-day state visit. We'll have royal reporters throughout the next couple of hours. He touched down in Washington, D.C. In the early hours with Queen Camilla. He was then taken for tea at the White House, where he was served cucumber sandwiches by a butler. Sounds fantastic. On a serious note, today he'll address Congress, where he'll call on the US and Britain to come together, even when they don't disagree. The irony should not be lost. The 77-year-old monarch who allegedly is suffering with cancer, I think people know that, travels 5,000 miles and, through his duty to this country and soft diplomacy, deals with a man who, you know, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And what's our own Prime Minister doing? Spending the entirety of his time holed up in 10 Downing Street trying to save his own skin. Starmer's got his own problems. Let's say a very good morning. Well, she's just legendary part of the show. Live from, I think, the UAE, Talks International Editor Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, you say there's only 2 stories in town, but leafing through the newspapers this morning, I alighted on something that caught my eye, which was that apparently if you steal food from your partner's plate at dinner or you're in a restaurant, it tastes better. It really is. Stealing chips, they really do taste better from someone else's plate. We bring you here on Talk all the most important revelations.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right. The front of the Times has King's message of unity as he arrives in the US. Then it has PM battles to block sleaze vote. But right at the top it's got the added flavour is danger. How stolen chips really do taste better. Do you steal the Tice man's food?
Oh my God, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know it tastes better from someone else's plate, right?
Do you have a friend? I've got a mate. Whenever like 6 or 8 of you maybe order a takeout, did Chinese, Indian, whatever, right? I know this was made famous on Gavin and Stacey by James Corden, but it's so true. Got a mate, Steve. He's going to order his main course and his rice and his poppadoms and his naan bread and no buggers going near his food. Drives me insane.
Got to share, haven't you? You've just got to be willing to let people take your food and you take theirs in return.
You see, we've started in a very light-hearted way, me and Oakshott, because we're about to go full on. In an hour and a half, we have the latest edition of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Last week we had Sir Ollie Robbins, of course, sticking the knife into Keir Starmer. This morning, Isabel, at 9 o'clock, Sir Philip Barton, who used to be the head of the civil service, he's already intimated that pressure was exerted on him to pass Mandelson ASAP. And then Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, ex-Chief of Staff, the man who went, oh, sir, sorry about that, I had 2 phones and one's been stolen. I know it was the government one, and on that one I didn't have the retraceable messages, and I don't know where I lost it, and I phoned the police, but I didn't tell them my name or where I came from. Do you firstly think, on a dodgy day for Starmer, do you think either of those will put the boot in or not?
I mean, I don't think it'll get any worse for Starmer particularly than it did last week with Ollie Robbins, but it might do. I mean, Philip Barton, I think, is known to not really carry any torch for the Prime Minister. Yeah. And so who knows what he may come out with. This story is so kind of hard, isn't it, in a way, because we all know, I think the majority of the great British people, all they want is for Keir Starmer to go. And on the one hand, for Westminster observers, it is fascinating listening to these select committees. On the other hand, my God, this has gone on and on and on and on, hasn't it? And you're kind of like, look, we know the whole Mandelson thing was a spectacular screw up by the Prime Minister. It's hideous, it's sleazy, almost case proven 1,000 times over. How much more do we keep needing to reinforce the point? By the way, I'm fascinated by another story that's coming up this week. I'm not trying to deflect off Starmer, but this is Starmer related, which is the trial of these 3 Ukrainian fashionistas stroke models who are accused of arson related offences at Starmer's properties. I mean, that is one hell of a cracking story of which we've heard very little, and is, to me at this point, a lot fresher and more exciting than, oh my God, yet another top Mandarin is giving evidence at a select committee.
Hold on a second. Okay. Yes. Factual. 2 are Ukrainian and 1 is Romanian. Obviously, right. It's an active case, so we'll await for justice to take its course. But with a slight little upturned grin on my face, I too look forward to that moment.
Accused of is what I said, and I'm sure that we be very fair and say they may well have pleaded not guilty.
But that little smile at the turn of my mouth, we'll just see what happens on that one. This is so fascinating for me, and you know that the Starmer, and I get it, select committees, it's just we're all sitting here waiting. Last night they had the vote that actually the Tories instigated, which was to get him to face an ethics investigation in front of the Privileges Committee. Now we all know quite rightly what happened to Boris Johnson. Have you seen the montage from the Tory party? Have you seen this montage about how many times he called for Johnson to go? He's a liar, he's a liar, he's a liar. And yet, Isabel, he's going to whip his own MPs and force them to vote what he calls a political stunt down. The man's, it's brazen, isn't it? Brazen.
I mean, he just is not for budging, is he? This is a guy that doesn't care that he is absolutely despised by so much of the population. He's told us before that he doesn't read the papers, so presumably he's completely oblivious to the polling that shows him as like the most unpopular prime minister ever in modern times. He's clearly not going to budge without being absolutely dragged out of there. And I thought it was Carl Turner that you had on earlier.
Yeah.
I thought he made a really important point. It's not a new point, but it's worth reinforcing that Starmer is going to do everything possible to stop Andy Burnham being able to compete with him for that top job, because Andy Burnham, in a move that he may now be regretting, long ago gave up his parliamentary seat.
Yep.
And in order to get back in, he's got to run in a by-election. There has to be some kind of by-election. And even if a space could be found and made, and Starmer's going to pull every lever to stop the Labour Party machine allowing that, there's no such thing as a safe Labour seat these days. So wherever Andy Burnham stood, other parties, whether it's the Greens, the horror of the Greens, whether it's Reform, are going to absolutely flood that constituency, throwing everything they've got at it. And no way could Andy Burnham be sure of winning.
I completely agree. And are you of the mindset, like some who phone this show and text, that actually, however appalling Starmer is, Isabel, the alternative is even worse? Or are you, like me, I'm stronger on the fact that ethically and morally, I think this man has misled and lied on so many occasions. I think he's incompetent with no plan, and I just don't think he stacks up. And I want him gone for all the very reasons that he got into office, because he talked about decency and he talked about doing the job correctly. I think, as you quite rightly said, the most unpopular Prime Minister we've ever had.
I've got two different views on this, and one is the journalistic view, which is that I'm so bored of Starmer. He's dire, he's awful. Surely we've had as many scandals as you can possibly get out of one man, and that it would be much more entertaining to have Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband, much more entertaining. Though I'm not buying into Carl Turner saying, well, I think we should have Angela because she's ordinary. We don't want ordinary for prime ministers.
No, but I do take his point that we're sick and tired of robotic people who only answer a question when a focus group tells them not to. That's why Farage is so popular, because he'll speak from the heart, right?
Yeah, so she's not I mean, she's normal in that sense, and that's why I say it could be much more fun and entertaining. But the political answer to that, as far as I'm concerned, is that I think Starmer will do the least worst damage to the country, and that is a very low threshold. He's doing terrible damage every day. And I think Starmer gives us the best hope, because he's so awful. He gives us the best hope of an amazing victory for another party, if I can put it that way.
Now you can, and you know I love you, and actually I'm partly responsible for you getting that beautiful engagement ring, because I badgered the Tyson.
You are actually, yeah.
But so you owe me this. Overnight, Keir Starmer paid tribute to his wife. We're going to play this clip. He was asked by Cathy Newman, does your wife support you? Does she want you to carry on? This was his response to Cathy Newman. Have a watch.
I always listen to Vic, and I think she was the one in the first place that basically said, why on earth would you want to go into politics? But she is an absolute...
And your answer to that question now?
She is an absolute rock, and I confide in her all of the time, and hers is the best advice, and I'm just thankful that I've got her every day.
And at the moment she's advising you to keep going.
She is, yes, and we talk everything through, and it's fantastic. We've got also two fantastic kids, a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. I can't tell you how much joy and happiness they bring. They are my pride and joy every single day.
So the big question we want to know on the breakfast show this morning, Isabel, is because my dad always told me the power is always... He called my mother the war office, or the enemy. Where's the enemy? In the kitchen. Presumably, the Tice man relies on your incredible political knowledge and basically can't do anything without your say-so or your help.
Oh, we'd all love to think that, wouldn't we? But I want to just comment on Keir Starmer's body language there. Why is he so rigid? What's wrong with the man? I think he needs to do some yoga or something. He literally looks like he's in a straitjacket. This is a man who's talking about something that should be as close to the heart as it gets. And yet his body, it's just so rigid there. It's like he's sitting in an invisible phone box or something, and he's all...
Do you know what I agree with you on completely? I said it earlier, Isabel. There's nothing that authentic that I buy about him. Does that make... I don't have any sympathy, I don't have any anger. It's just, there's nothing there. It's like a faceless... I don't know.
It's a hollow man, you know, he just is like a... You know, we've had this conversation, cardboard box, you know, there's something, it's like he's hollow. He's just going through the motions. I don't doubt that of course he's proud of his children and they give him joy, but he's unable to express it. Yeah. You know, wouldn't it be just so much different and refreshing to see Keir Starmer just looking really dishevelled and, you know, I don't know, in a tracksuit or something.
With a bit of stubble with a vape in his hand and a bottle of Wicked in the other hand. Yeah.
I mean, that would do him so much good, wouldn't it? Anything other than this. He's just not real, is he?
My mornings aren't complete without you. I love you. Thank you so much. Bless your heart. She works so hard for this company. Thank you, Isabel Oakeshott. Brilliant. Our international editor. 20 minutes to 8 o'clock. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jezza. Sean of Cheshire. Just listening to you there, having a chat. The bill that went through last night, to repeal the Veterans Bill, the Troubles Bill. Let's just remember that the soldiers and the military that are being hounded were doing the job that politicians told them to do. Politicians, MPs, ministers, prime ministers. That's who told them. And I think I've messaged you before. The buck stops with them. So if anybody's deciding to go and hound Private Smith and Soldier F, then really have a look who was in charge, who was the Defence Minister, who was the Prime Minister, get them in the dock and ask them why they told the MOD and the chiefs of the MOD what they were doing and the orders that they gave them, because that is who it ultimately stops with. And I'm a veteran, and I too am worrying about the same thing. Cheers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I know this show is full of news, but one of those adverts has just wound me up. You know this I am a robot rubbish? In the name of God, do you know what happened to me yesterday? I need to do it to me. How many traffic lights? I haven't got my glasses on, got it wrong, got locked out my own bloody phone. How does that work? I am a robot. 0344 499 1000. We do love all of our advertisers, though. It's a fantastic ad. 0344 499 1000. Yesterday, Argentina's vice president renewed Buenos Aires' claim to the British overseas territory, the Falkland Islands, by saying Falkland Islanders should go back to Britain. Argentina's claim to what it calls the Malvinas has recently, of course, boosted when Donald Trump threatened to review the official US position on the islands after the UK refused to join his war on Iran. I'm delighted and honoured to have my next guest on, a Falklands veteran, a man who suffered so much, was awarded the CB and has become an incredibly vocal voice for the island and the armed forces. Simon Weston, a very good morning and welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Let's start with that. We've become, I think, quite used to Donald Trump the ups and downs of him. I don't think that's what this should be about. You all those years ago, and I remember I was a youngster, I remember following the bravery of so many people to go and do that, and it makes a mockery of where we're at today. What's your response to the Argentinian Vice President saying Falkland Islands should go back to England, my friend?
Well, the Vice President of Argentina, first of all, needs to read the history of the islands to understand that the islands were never Argentinian. They never occupied the islands. They never created any industry there. The only other people who were there before us were the French, and they couldn't make it work. And just on the simple fact, her saying that we should go back to England, all the English should go back to England, 75% of the original DNA of anybody who's living on the islands is Scottish. They were Scottish hill farmers, and they were the only people who were tough enough to make it work. So, you know, she doesn't even understand the basic, simple history of the islands. And the only time we left it was for economic reasons, but went back a few years later, and we left a big plaque there saying this is British territory. Argentina's claim is based on a time when they weren't even a country. They were known as the nation of states. They didn't even have a flag. They certainly didn't have a government or a parliament or a leader, an individual leader. So where does their claim come from? I'll tell you where it starts. It starts in 1945, after the Second World War, when they thought that there was no desire to hold the islands. And the second you get any inkling that there's a gap between the sovereignty and the UK, they seem to want to jump in. But they're the ones who are the most aggressive on all of this. They're the ones who've hijacked ships on the open seas. They're the ones who've interrupted their trade and their livelihoods and threatened them continuously. But, you know, look, the islanders are doing a great job of their own management, looking after their own economy, their industry. They've done a great job, and it's a great compliment to all of us who went down there that there's a strong legacy. So I think, why would we want to hand over all that the islanders have achieved in the last 44 years to a country that's still dealing with mass corruption, still dealing with great economic problems? Mr. Malay has done a great job in his own country, so stay there. Keep on with what you're doing where you are. Don't get involved in other people's business, and leave the islanders alone. What does he want to go there for? What is the benefit to him? And if everybody keeps telling me about the geography, well, that means I can go and steal my next door neighbour's back garden then, because it's so close to me. You know.
Do you know, I'm slightly in awe speaking to you, pal. I watched it all those years ago, and what you and your fellow men and women did, and I just wanted to. I completely agree with everything you've said, and I don't need to add anything. I just wanted to look at those pictures we're looking at now. Imagine what everybody went through, and I'd love, Simon, if I can, to ask you your opinion on something that probably troubles me more than almost anything this awful government has brought in. Last night in the House of Commons, the Troubles Bill was voted through into the next parliamentary session. It doesn't matter by how many. This is a bill that says, and I think is grotesque, and I don't care what anybody thinks about me saying that. Thank you so much indeed for donning your uniform 30 years ago, and after politicians told your leaders you were sent to Northern Ireland, and it might be now that we've decided in our human rights ideology that something that happened was wrong. So what we're going to do is we're going to potentially sue you, prosecute you and put you in jail, but what we're going to do at the same time is give immunity to the IRA. Is it any wonder, Simon Weston, that people don't want to join up anymore? Is that not one of the most disgraceful things you've ever heard?
I despair, much like yourself, Jeremy, the fact that people are looking retrospectively at things all these years on. We're not looking at what went on in the Second World War with the Nazis. What we're looking at is people who were sent to Northern Ireland to be extra police officers. That's what we were there for. And the police, we were subservient to the police. If the police said, you do this or you don't do that, then we didn't do it. We couldn't do it. So we were there. We were never trained to be police. I was there. We were never trained to be police. We were still soldiers. And as we were still soldiers, how on earth were we supposed to be able to do policing? Policing was not our job. the police had a very, very tough job. You know, there were so many of them because of the threat they faced over there. But then for people 30, 40 years later on to sit in their ivory towers, pick up a piece of paper and to understand the enormous adrenaline threat that you face in having to make a decision, and the fear, if you'd have known that just by making one poor decision, you could then be dragged into court, thrown into jail for 15 or 20 years for potential murder. But the fact that you were facing a threat that would have taken yours or any of your patrol's lives, and then you're being asked to recount and to go through that again. And when all the evidence that was ever given at different times, people were told, they were promised, they were given assurities that it would never be used against them. And now, all this time later, we have this guy you're showing on the TV screen, I can't bring myself to say his name, this guy who is hunting people and has spent his whole career hunting people who did their job the best they could with, in truth, poor training. Because we weren't trained to be police officers.
Simon, I could literally talk to you all day, mate. I hate the fact sometimes that breakfast is so quick, but I meant what I said, mate. It's an absolute privilege to speak to you. What you and your fellow servicemen and women did, in my mind, is one of the most impressive things ever. And I loved chatting and hearing what you think now, and we thank you so much indeed. Legend, absolute legend, British Army veteran, Simon Weston, CBE, there on breakfast. Rob's driving Chloe to school. Have a good day, Chloe. Not school, college. That was embarrassing, Jez, wasn't it? Morning, Carl.
Hi, Jeremy. Carl from Coventry here. Can I just say, it's a shame Carl Turner isn't still in the Labour Party. Because if anyone out the Labour Party deserves to be the next MP, it's him. The old school. He's talking sense. He's the only Labour person that talks sense. And you know what I've got respect for? That now he's an independent. He hasn't gone like most of them as soon as they've been kicked out of one party or the other. Oh, I'm going to reform, I'm going to reform. No, he's gone independent and stuck to his own values. This man is a diamond. Other MPs should look at him and learn.
The handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 5 to 8. Let's talk now very quickly about the royal state visit. His Majesty the King and Queen Camilla landed in Washington, D.C., joint Air Force Base at St Andrews Base in Washington last night. We're delighted to say a very good morning. It's been far too long. Michael Cole, legendary royal commentator. Good morning, dear boy. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. A great day. We can only hope that the King and Queen are getting a good night's sleep, because they're going to need it. They're going to have an extremely busy day. And don't forget that the King is 77, has that constant concern about cancer, and the Queen is 78. So they're not like spring chickens like you and me.
Oh, I am.
And it's going to be a very, very important day. In fact, very few more important in the history of the monarchy. The highlight will be the 20 minutes that the King will spend addressing both houses of Congress. And that will be a speech obviously very much the King's own, but written on the advice of the government, Keir Starmer. But in it, of course, the King calls for peace, prosperity, reconciliation, acknowledging the differences we've had with America in the past. I mean, British soldiers burned down the White House in 1812, and he will talk about renewal and reconciliation. And he'll also mention, in light of your last interview, his own proud service in the Royal Navy, which of course was disparaged rather cruelly by the President Trump, and his defense secretary, or his war secretary, as he styles himself in recent days. So the King has got a big, big day ahead. It starts with a ceremonial welcome on the lawn of the White House, with the Marine Band playing and the inspection of the Guard of Honor. And then there will be an important meeting privately between the King and the President. So there'll be no ambush in the Oval Office as there was with poor President Zelensky of Ukraine in February last year. And I'm sure that the King will be saying things about the Falklands. I don't think the Falklands figures in the speech as it's been leaked, but I'm sure that he will make that point about British sovereignty, which goes back 180 years. And as Simon Weston said so eloquently, the Argentines never had any claim to the islands at that time.
Well said, Michael, and as ever, I always wish we had more time, but I said this yesterday, and I'll say to you, a man I respect enormously, for all the critics of the royal family recently, and obviously Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor and Fergie and Harry and the odious Meghan and all that, this is where the British monarchy is second to none. This is soft diplomacy at its best. You quite rightly said it. Two people approaching 80, one very ill, will achieve more in 4 days than this government and Trump's government have achieved in 2 years. And this is, for me, the definitive proof that when it's done correctly, the British monarchy is the best in the world.
Well, our alliance, and the King says that there is no alliance more important in human history than the one we've had with the United States. And he will stress the importance of NATO as well, and alliances, and coming together, and unity, and all of those things. And as you say, he will do it man to man, and he will achieve more than the government has had. In fact, he may even save the government's blushes, because let's make no mistake, we depend upon America a great deal for our defence, and the rift that has opened up, the chasm that's opened up between us, is very regrettable. And if anybody can repair the damage that's been done in recent days, it is the King and the Queen. She will be playing her part, and that's right and proper, and we can only wish them well.
Michael, please, next week, come on, we'll do more of this. I'd always love to have more time. Looking very splendid there, sir. Looking very well. It's good to have you on. Good man. Thank you. Michael Cole, legendary royal broadcaster and commentator. They're talking about the King and Queen. Charles and Camilla landed in Washington, D.C. overnight. They're in the White House, and today, as Michael said, he will address Congress, where he'll call on the US and Britain to come together even when they do not agree. It's almost 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Breakfast is on. Sarah Pochin, the First Lady of Reform, out of the news at 8:0344 499 1000 if you want to be on, and the news at 8 is next. Labour MP, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson.
We've now had another resignation from number 10. The plot is sickening, the noose is tightening.
His failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
This is all part of Starmer's reset, getting rid of his inner circle. So Chris Wormold, we think fairly reluctantly, has stepped down.
What an absolutely crazy week for Keir Starmer. His second cabinet secretary, gone. His third chief of staff, gone. His fourth director of communications, gone.
Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning. Welcome along or welcome back. Just gone 8 o'clock, Tuesday, the 28th of April. You're very welcome to Talk Breakfast. My name's Jeremy Kyle, for my sins. We are here live until 10 o'clock, Monday to Thursday. And, of course, we want your views on the news of the day. So much going on. Three ways of well, two, to be fair. 0344 499 1000. That's your telephone number. You can leave a voice note for Christian. You can also text us 87222. Today's a massive day. In an hour, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee will sit under the guise of Dame Emily Thornberry. That in itself is worth broadcasting. But first up, Sir Philip Barton, former head of the Civil Service in the Foreign Office. Will he stick the knife into the dodgy Keir Starmer? When I say dodgy, it's just an opinion. Morgan McSweeney, I lost my phone. I was the chief of staff. I had two phones, right? I did. I was walking on the road, and the one they stole was the government one. The personal one, gladly, that was all right. And the other thing is, I did turn off the messages could be retraced on the government one. The other thing, I know I phoned the police. I didn't tell them my name or where I was coming from, but I was a bit stressed. Anyway, he's going to be there. Are they going to do a job on a Prime Minister who last night was told he had to face a vote today into whether he should face an ethics investigation in front of the Privileges Committee? That, of course, was the committee that found Boris Johnson had lied to the House of Commons. Starmer, OK, I mean, Dan Hodges was on the show yesterday from the Mail saying 7 times he's misled Parliament. Everybody that knows this will say this man has misled Parliament. And yet his response last night was to say, I'm going to whip... I love people will tune in and think, what's he doing about? I'm going to force the Labour MPs, OK? I'm going to force them to vote in my favour so I don't have to face this committee. 2 questions for you, Sir Keir. One... If you're telling the truth, why do you need to whip your MPs? And also, if you're telling the truth, why wouldn't you be happy to face this committee and be proven innocent? I don't usually big up the Tories. This is a fantastic thing they put together. Who do you think he's talking about here?
Prime Minister resorting to lies. The Prime Minister lied. He lied to this country. If he misled Parliament, he must resign. It's no good, him trying to blame politicians in general. There's one person at the centre of this. Look, there are only 2 possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers. Come off it. The public have made up their mind. I think the facts speak for themselves. He then lied about what had happened. The Prime Minister lied. I genuinely think now that it's in the national interest that he goes. The ministerial code says that ministers who knowingly mislead the House should resign. Why is he still here?
I'll tell you why he's still here, OK, because his wife, Vic... And you have to be pretty cool to have a wife called Vic. His wife, Vic, apparently has told him to stay in the job. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Mike in Whitney here. I notice how Keir Starmer said he runs everything past his wife. So now, when it all goes wrong, he's going to blame her, isn't he?
Probably very true. We say a very good morning to the First Lady of Reform, the MP for Runcorn Helsby. Good morning, Sarah Pochin. Oh, look, we've got a view of the kitchen. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Kyle. I'm very well, thank you. It's lovely to have you back.
Thank you. The only kitchen that's never had a slice of bread, some orange, nothing. It's just a tap. It's honestly, it's a gorgeous tap. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. But what a big day we're facing today here in Parliament. You know, the time has come once again for the Labour MPs to give their verdict on their leader, on their Prime Minister. And as you so rightly put it just now, you know, if he's got nothing to hide, if he's done nothing wrong, then why is he having to whip his MPs to keep him in place?
It's interesting. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee as well this morning, Sarah. We spoke to Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. We spoke to Carl Turner, who was brave enough to stick his head above the parapet from the Labour Party and lost the whip. Do you believe that at that committee this morning, either Sir Philip Barton or Morgan McSweeney, from a reform point of view, will put the boot into Starmer?
Look, you know what, from the point of view of people like my constituents in Runcorn and Helsby, all of this is semantics. You know, yes, it's very interesting to us who are inside the Westminster bubble at times, if you like, to analyse all of this stuff. But the fact remains that it's actually in the national interest for Keir Starmer to go. I mean, one of the clips you showed there was him talking about the national interest. Well, my goodness, is it in our interest to have a different Prime Minister? And every Labour MP should think carefully before they vote today, because these local elections are 8 days away and the electorate will give their verdict on Keir Starmer in a mere 8 days' time.
Keir Starmer said that Kemi Badenoch's desire to bring this vote through was nothing more than a political stunt. What's Reform's view on that, Sarah?
Well, it's a political stunt of his own making, isn't it? You know, he has raged, since he's been Prime Minister, he's raged a war on hardworking people in this country through taxation. He's raging a war constantly on business by penalising them every which way they turn. He's raging a war on young people. He's destroying their job prospects. He's waging a war on veterans. Only last night we were voting about that in the Chamber, and I'd like to talk about that. But, you know, on all decent, hardworking members of our community, of our country, he has waged war on them, and he deserves to go. It's in the national interest for him to go. And here we are today, thankfully, our King and Queen over in the United States trying to rescue what is left of our transatlantic relationship.
I think the opposition parties are all in agreement that a man who made, quite rightly it turned out, you try and do this as honestly as possible, criticisms and pushed for Boris Johnson to face that ethics committee. You live and die by what you say and what you do. And the front of the Mail has it nailed on today, Starmer's stitch-up to save his own skin. And whether you're Tory or Reform, Liberal Democrat, everybody is saying the same thing, which is that this man should face the same forensic analysis in the decisions that he's taken and the things that he said in the House. I thought Carl Turner nailed it earlier when he said, this isn't about being Prime Minister. This is about potentially an MP lying within the institution that is the House of Commons. And, I mean, those Labour MPs, from the people that are speaking to me this morning, are saying that if you are whipped and you just follow through, you won't be talking about national interest. And very much like what's going on in the country, Sarah, the British public won't forgive you. They won't.
But they won't. And, you know, like I say, these Labour MPs have got a big decision to make today. If they follow the whip and just vote to protect this Prime Minister, then they cannot be sorry about what is going to happen at the ballot box in 8 days' time. He's finished. He's at the end of his political career. It's quite clear. The concern is, whether he goes, because of this privileges committee, or whether he goes in due course following May the 7th. But the concern is that every day this Prime Minister's in place, the damage he is doing to the country and the betrayal of the British people. And look, we could go through the list of examples of where he doesn't put the interests of the British people first. My concern is, what are we faced with as an alternative, Jeremy? I mean, these shades of far left that face us as an alternative to Keir Starmer are nothing short of frightening.
I couldn't agree more. Can I talk about something that you wanted to talk about? I've been massively vocal about this, and I will continue to be so. Last night, MPs voted to continue the Troubles Bill into the next parliamentary session by 279 to 176. Although a majority of 103, that means, my maths isn't that good, but almost 200 MPs either abstained or didn't vote. I spoke to Simon Weston, a veteran from the Falklands. Just an honour and a privilege to speak to him before the break, Sarah. What we're saying to people who 30 years ago were sent to a territory to carry out a duty by elected politicians is, if you're in your care home or wherever you are, there'll probably be a knock on the door very soon, because this human rights lot will basically set out to prosecute you and possibly put you in prison. And just by the way, if that doesn't make you feel bad enough, we're going to give immunity to the IRA. I have sat here and I've had opinions on a lot of things. Some people agree with and some don't. I've never seen response as I saw yesterday to this. This is the most disgusting and vile piece of legislation. Matt Vickers said it. I'm sure Reform will say it. I think it's a disgrace.
Well, look, Jeremy, I take every opportunity I possibly can to speak in Parliament on this issue. Last night, the debate was so short that I had my speech ready and then I wasn't called to speak, sadly. But I take every opportunity to defend our veterans. And the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, the odious individual that is our Attorney General, Lord Hermer, all of them should be utterly ashamed of themselves and utterly ashamed that this bill is even still being discussed. It should not be carried over into the next Parliament. And look, my point is this, you know, I grew up in a household that lived through the Northern Ireland Troubles. My dad did 3 tours in Northern Ireland. He's no longer with us. But all of the men that I see and greet when they're in Parliament Square, when they're inside the House of Parliament, you know, they remind me of my dad and the fact that those men were prepared to die to keep us safe. And this is how this government is rewarding them. You know, under a Reform government, no veteran would ever face prosecution for actions they took in the line of duty. And, you know, the self-congratulating stuff we've read about Starmer and Hermer, you know, in their pursuit of these prosecutions is nothing short of sickening.
I mean, I'm being completely honest. I've had this conversation, as I said, with Reform, with you, with the Tories, with Carl, who used to be in the Labour Party earlier. I don't understand what individual sits down and says it's a really good idea, OK, to attack the very people who put their lives on their line to do right by this country. To me, it's almost repugnant. It doesn't make sense to me, Sarah, and it is something that is infuriating the British people. I mean, utterly infuriating the British people. You touched also upon the King and Queen's visit to Washington, D.C. You're right. Soft diplomacy at its greatest, and I think proving the strength of the royal family, whilst they scurry around, I mean, he's addressing Congress later, to do their best to, you know, let's be fair, repair a relationship that right now is quite fractured.
Well, thank goodness that we've got the King and Queen going over there and you know, and trying to repair, as you say, this very important relationship. Because I want to make a couple more points, and that is, look, if this Northern Ireland, and it's relevant to the King's visit, but if this Northern Ireland bill carries on going through, young people have no desire to join our armed forces. We currently have an army that is smaller than the number of young fighting age males that have come into this country since Keir Starmer's been in charge. And my point is that without America, without the special relationship that we have with the US, we are utterly defenseless. We have an army smaller than the illegal immigrants that have come in since Keir Starmer has been in charge. That is an absolute national disgrace. We cannot defend ourselves. And without Trump, without the United States, we are at a complete national security emergency point.
I'd like to make the point I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says, and when he attacked the British soldiers and when he attacked men and women who have served for this country, I find that as abhorrent. But I do not understand how an elected government can take it upon themselves to retrospectively attack people who don a uniform and fight for Queen, well, in this case, King and country. You know, the one thing that I do this job as honestly and as correctly as I can do, and there are some things good and some things bad. I have to ask you about this. We've had a lot of people asking, and you're on from Reform this morning. Yesterday, the national fuel protest outside the House of Commons that was billed as the nation's biggest fuel protest in more than 2 decades was called off and didn't go very well. There was a reform bus and several taxis. Any idea what happened? Generally, because people are asking. I wasn't down there.
Well, look, I did go along and reform. We arrived on our bus. But the point is a very important point. Rachel Reeves is netting £22 million a day because of the hike in fuel prices due to the national crisis, the international crisis over there in the Gulf. I was just watching those pictures. That's us on top of the bus. But the point is, she is not supporting the motorists. It's a war on the motorists.
Did you expect more people to turn up is what people are asking us, and I have to put that to you.
Yeah, listen, I wasn't part of the organising of that protest yesterday, but what's important is that we get our message out there. A reform government would cut VAT on fuel prices, and incidentally, and very interestingly, governments around Europe are already doing that, and we could be doing that now, but because of the dire interest payment situation that we have on our national debt, Rachel Reeves is pocketing that £22 million she's getting a day and not supporting the motorists. And that is the point that we were making yesterday. If Reform was in charge, we would stop the war on motorists and we would cut VAT at the pumps.
Two light-hearted ways to end. Keir Starmer, who is facing real criticism this morning, says that he relies on his Vic. I tend to rely on my Vic. Do you check with Mr. Pochin what you're going to say, what you're going to wear and how you're going to appear? What's the truth? Is he the trousers?
Oh, what do you think about that, Jeremy? I couldn't possibly comment.
Oh, there we go. But perhaps the one question to ask you, Sarah Pochin, I've asked everybody all morning, do you nick people's food? Because it's extraordinary, this. On the front of the Times, you've got King's message of unity as he arrives in the United States. Then we've got PM battles to block sleaze vote. But on the very front of the Times, it says, the added flavour is danger. If you steal somebody's chips, they taste better.
Oh, my God, yeah, absolutely. Listen, if I'm out to dinner with a man, to all you men out there that want to take me out to dinner, be prepared for me to take your chips, steal your chips.
Curry sauce, gravy or ketchup on your chips?
Oh, ketchup, 100% ketchup.
Ketchup. Sarah Pochin, we love you. Thank you so much. Runcorn and Helsby, the First Lady of Reform, 8:20, talking chips. You see how I do this? You see? I mean, people will think this is thrown together. It's Ollie time. He's in the car. Oliver's favourite thing is ketchup and chips by a mile. It has to be the right ketchup. Don't get ketchup when you're in Portugal that's not. Don't get it from McDonald's. It's got to be ketchup, and then you've got to have lots and lots of ketchup. Good boy. Have a great day at school. Rissy Roo as well. Listen to my Vic. She'll tell you what to do. 8:20. Morning, Dan.
Morning, Jezza. It's Dan from Kent. What Starmer's doing, whipping up his MPs to save his own skin, force to stop an inquiry. He's dangerous. If he gets away with it this time, he'll use it time and time again. He's basically turned one of our oldest constitutions into a dictatorship. And I'll finish with what I heard the other day. Completely sums up Keir Starmer. He has a humiliation fetish. Great show.
I was growing up, a profound love of the British Empire, actually, and the good that Britain did for the world. And yet, to have that view today seems more of an exception than the norm.
Over the past week, I have been living on the coast of Belgium. Small boats leaving the Flemish coast to go to England. So far, 20 small boats that have left the Belgian coast to come to England.
When they saw that drunk woman at 5:45 a.m. in the morning, they just felt contempt for her. They took advantage of her. They are barbarians.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:23. We're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast is on, my friends. If you want to give your view on the news of the day, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. John in Poole, I bet Starmer is furious and a bit jealous that the King has gone on an overseas jaunt this week and he has to stay in England. Must be one of the very few weeks where our wandering wanderer has spent a full week in this country. Yeah, well, he's trying to save his own skin. Morning, Jez. Great show. God bless Simon Weston. He should be knighted. That's Warwick in Devon, not Devon in Warwick. It could be round that way. Paula James is in Bexhill on Sea. I remember watching Simon during his treatment for his awful injuries he sustained during the Falklands War. I cried with him and I admired him at the same time, and I'm just so pleased he got through it and has done so well in his life since. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Charles as well. Argentina always bangs on about the Falklands when their country is crashing to appease their people. 4 years ago, there were 45 pesos to the pound. Today's rate is 1,914, and we thought we were screwed. Can I make the point? Many people have touched upon the fact next Thursday, the local elections, and when you broadcast during this sort of time, you have to be as balanced as possible. This morning, we've had the Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, Matt Vickers. We've had Carl Turner, ex-Labour, now independent. We've had Sarah poaching for reform. It's important. We try very hard to put everybody's views forward. You won't be surprised to know the Labour Party, we ask every day. I've got to, I mean, Bridget Phillipson was on the round today. Won't give me the time of day. I've offered. Delighted now to be talking about the Greens. Good mate of mine. It's been too long. Colin Robertson, great piece. Page 10 of The Sun. How are you, son?
I'm very good. I'm very good.
Page Son of The Sun. How are you, son? That didn't work.
No, it sounded okay to me. I'll let you off.
This is MP's glimpse of green dystopia. Hannah Spencer, the newly elected MP for Gorton and Denton, says lunchtime pint is bad, but heroin is okay.
In a nutshell, yeah. She's done this incredible interview where it was an extraordinary interview where she sat down with one of her sort of preferred kind of like online lefty echo chambers. You know, she's probably not going to come on your show. No. And she sat there and she's gone, oh, you know, she's been in Parliament 5 minutes. She goes, oh, I don't like it. I've seen people drinking when they're supposed to be going to vote. You know, you wouldn't have people drinking if they worked in the bank or they worked in the supermarket and this, that, and the other. And essentially, what she's trying to say is she's basically dobbing in everyone at Parliament and saying they're all. Getting all,
on the source.
On the source.
But isn't that true?
Well, I mean, is it true? Is it not true? I mean, a lot of these votes that she's talking about, some of them take place sort of 10:30 at night. And actually, if you're voting in Parliament, you either care about it, and therefore you're not going to change your mind just because you've had a couple of sherries while you wait for the division.
I mean, it's quite an interesting point. I mean, I read your article. It's brilliant. Read it. Page 10 of The Sun. You know what? Everybody knows what I think about The Sun. I think that whether I sit here and go have a drink or I sit here and go there's a drinking culture, what concerns me more is the other part of your article is it's okay to stand up and say let's legalise heroin. That to me is what needs scrutiny, whether it's locally or nationally for the Greens. There's a lot in there that can be viewed as quite frightening.
Well, this is why it's weird that she would pick on people having an occasional pint. And the strength of feeling in Westminster is exactly that. They're also, I mean, Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, kind of summed it up and just said, bore off, which is essentially what it is. It's like stop picking on stuff like that. But actually, the bigger problem is if you look at the Green Party policies, they want to legalise every single drug going. Heroin, crack, meth.
What is their argument behind that?
Well, their argument is with something like that, and there is, you can look into it. There's lots of papers on this, and there's been a lobby that's been going on for a long time. That you say by making things illegal, you bring shame on people. They won't seek help. You criminalise them. You put them in jail when they should be getting treatment and all the rest of it. And that's a debate that they want to have. But it's been had many times before, and the net result seems to be actually no. Let's just keep them illegal and deal with people in that way.
I mean, we've got a clip. Listen, we're allowed to have our opinions. I agree with you about the drug thing completely. I did a show for a long and used to write about it, and I can tell you that moving from one drug to the next and to the next is an absolute given for many drug addicts, because as much as that drug gives you, when you take it a lot, you need the next one, and I think it's incredibly dangerous. And I'd like come on this show, because I'd like you to talk to a mother or a father who's lost a son through heroin addiction and look them full square in the face and say, we want to legalise it. This is Hannah, though. Let's balance out. This is Hannah on drinking. Nice.
I'm really uneasy about, and I noticed this the other day, when you can smell the alcohol when people are in between votes, and as everyone's going in to vote, some people have been drinking in between. Like, there's a room where I walked past and I doubled back and looked in because people are just sat having a drink. But again, that's a job. Like, I can't imagine if a cleaner did that, or someone working in a bank, like, had a few drinks and then went back to work, like, a bit, you know, like smelling of alcohol, like, that wouldn't happen. And I think there's been so many cases recently of, like, questionable and dangerous behaviour from, you know, allegedly from MPs, but staff, like, because this culture of a really unprofessional and worrying setting where people can just drink alcohol.
Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion. The other thing, that if I was looking at a Green manifesto, I'd be talking about the fact they want to open our borders, absolutely, welcome every single person who wants to come here and give them a house.
Well, this is the thing. By being really open and left-wing and all the rest of it, they're just creating more problems. Yeah. So, yes, if you go back to the drugs thing very quickly, if you say, well, legalise drugs, and then then people, you know, there will be no shame. You can sort of say, well, yes, I'm addicted to heroin, but, you know, it was legal, so I'm not going to be criminalised for that because that's my addiction and I feel terrible and I want to do something about it. So then you have the service that will fix you, and there's no shame around that. The problem is, I'm pretty sure that if you legalise all drugs, you're just going to end up with more people banging on the door saying, can I have help? So that's the thing. So, yes, you are providing help, and who doesn't want to provide help for people who are in trouble? The problem is, I think you'll just create more people who need that help, because actually, when you start taking drugs, for the vast majority of people, they actually quite enjoy it. It takes a while for it to start impacting your life, and then your family, and then you end up homeless or whatever, that might take you to the door of all these new places.
Do you know how many people have looked me full square in the face on television and gone, I'm just a social drug taker, I'm in charge of it? Really? Really? Absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, then
comment.
2 years later, they're living on the streets.
Absolutely. It's interesting for me, the Greens, but we should make this point in a balanced way. You said it to me off air. Latest national opinion polls, not talking locally, national, nearly 20%. Yeah. A fifth of this country are going with what her and Zach Polanski say. Where's that come from?
Well, I think actually what Zach Polanski is very good at is playing the game, the communications game, and so he's out there. And if you turned on an interview and listened to Zach Polanski, if you turned it on at a certain point, you might, I'm not saying you might agree with something, but he'll say things like tax multi-millionaires. They're sitting on all this money. Let's do a tiny little tax. It won't affect 99% of the people in the country. More than that, just let's squeeze a bit more money out of the multi-millionaires. Most people would say, yeah, OK.
Yeah, but that's like the people who go, do you care about the environment? Of course, we all will say yes to that, but we don't think we should spend, most of us, £800 billion on mad net zero policies that are going to screw us. The truth about that is, which I thought, it was in the paper the other week before I went off on holiday. Do you remember that figure? For the first time in history, the amount of money that we get from the Exchequer or tax on people, £331 billion, was
less than the benefits.
Was less than how much we were paying out. My argument would be to that, you live in a country, you make a success of your life. Do any of these people who want all these successful people to disappear, do they ever work out how much bloody tax these multi-millionaires pay, which goes to the country, or does nobody ever have that conversation?
But this is the thing, people aren't interested in that. No. They're interested in quick solutions, which they think are quick solutions. They like the sound of that. They like the sound of saying, so hang on, you won't tax me anymore, but you'll tax some multi-millionaire who I'm never going to be. You're going to tax him more and make my life better. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? Of course it sounds great. Yeah. You cannot say that does not sound great. For the vast majority of people in this country, because things are more complicated than that. It's a bit like, Magic Grandpa and Corbynism and all that, and everyone sort of said, and I had friends sort of saying, yeah, I like what he's saying. I like what he's saying. I'm sure you like what he's saying, but you're not going to like what he does, because it's going to bankrupt the country.
I'll tell you
what's going to happen with the Greens.
This is completely irrelevant, but I'm going to say it to you. I never thought that I would appear on TV and radio and say the following, which I said yesterday. There isn't a part of me that agrees with anything that Jeremy Corbyn said or did. But I have this grudging admiration that he stood on a platform that he laid out. He got 34%. He had a plan and he stuck to it, unlike the present incumbent who doesn't even seem to know what day of the week it is. And that's not me being pro-Corbyn. You've enacted response straight away. So Hannah wants to ban alcohol, but jacking up or snorting a line, that's OK, says Robbie. Brilliant. Morning, Jake. I have no issues with MPs taking a drink in House of Commons. What I do have a problem, says Graham in Stirling, is it being subsidised by the taxpayer.
That's a good point.
That's
If she'd
a really
made
good
that
point.
If she said, I walked into a stranger's bar and a pint was, I don't know what it is now, probably like £3 or something.
Yeah.
£2.50. Why is it that? Because they're not paying all the tax and all the rest of it. So I would say was the issue. And that doesn't seem very fair to me. And we've talked about this a lot. And MPs get a lot of perks.
They do.
There was the expenses scandal, the cheap drinks, subsidised drinks, and subsidised fillet steaks for lunch with a
subsidised fillet steak for lunch.
I've seen this stuff on the menus down at the restaurants there, and subsidised bottles of wine, all the rest of it. That is something that she could have landed a blow on. But no, she's just gone for this miserable, joyless, you can't have a pint at lunch. No one's having a pint at lunch. As I say in the thing today, I think they are having a pint at lunch. They're just not inviting you along.
Do you think that parties like, say, the Greens, Reform have been accused of it yesterday with that fuel thing? Do you think that they think the way forward is to jump on populist bandwagons like anti-alcohol, like anti-fuel? Do you think that this is a response to the two-party thing that's gone on for years, where two parties are suddenly going, Christ, we aren't going to be elected, and these other parties have joined the party, for want of a better phrase?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. You've seen what's happening with Reform as well. Reform are kind of moving slightly nearer the middle. They're getting rid of some of the more sort of extreme language and some of the more sort of extreme policies and that sort of thing. I mean, having things like, appointing someone as a Muslim who's going to be their mayoral candidate, that just didn't go down very well with a lot of the old people that were backing Reform, and they were saying, well, that's fine. We don't necessarily want them, because there's certain elements of their party which they don't really want on board. And with the Greens as well, again, we're on the fringes and moving more towards the centre ground. They are also saying, well, we don't want some of the more extremists then. You've seen recently that they've booted people out of the party. Latest was that guy Mark Adderley, who is one of the Sawala's husbands, and he's a kind of like lefty firebrand. And he was sort of talking about, which is, again, Labour had this, and now the Greens have got this, which is sort of an anti-Semitism problem. Because a lot of the people that they've got on board that they're attracting are the kind of, free Palestine people and the rest of it. And, within that, you are getting people who are just straight up anti-Semitic.
This is a really interesting point about parties as we approach nationally, but locally to a degree. Is you're absolutely right. You've got the Restore lot, which most people would say are further right than Reform, and Reform have moved to a point of being perhaps what the old Conservatives, Greens as well. Here's a voice note. Leon, good morning. It's about you.
Morning, Jezza. Regarding the Green Party and their disdain for members of Parliament having a little drink at night, I wonder if every single Green official would submit to mandatory drug testing, since they want to legalise drugs. Let's do that and see where that takes us.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It's a great point. But also, as one of my colleague Jack, our political editor, was saying, her words will annoy every Green, because she's basically said to all, I mean, there's only 5 of them, but she's but any other person who's standing for local councils or who's in the Green Party
can't be seen with a drink now at all.
Exactly.
Cannot
so
be seen.
Thinking, hang on a minute.
So I can make you laugh, right? So all Labour candidates are banned from pubs because they get thrown out because they want to ruin them. Now the Greens can't be seen anywhere near the pubs, and there's Farage with a pint in his hand the whole time. Yeah,
exactly.
Where are the Liberal Democrats?
Oh, well, they're probably just waking up to it. They'll probably put a statement out this afternoon.
Absolutely. By the way, great article. He's a top man. Page 10. Oh, it's up there. The Sun, Colin Robertson. Everything good with the family?
It's all good, yeah. Excellent.
Good man. It's been too long. I'll tell you what we should do quite soon is go for a drink.
Free at lunchtime.
Fantastic. Yeah, let's go at lunchtime. Talk breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 22 minutes to 9 o'clock. How are we lining up today on Talk? Julia Hartley-Brewer here from 10, Ian Collins from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan says it's sounding great and dry for 4 o'clock. He's doing a good job. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. It's so many of you wanting to respond. Morning, Jez. I'm actually astounded and furious that Starmer can literally tell his MPs how to vote this afternoon. If this was a court case, he would be arrested for tampering with the jury. Yet again, one rule for him and another for everyone else. It's absolutely sickening, says Tracy in Chingford. Amanda in London. No-show for reform fuel protest. The time will come when the streets are overflowing with the protesters, Jez. Right now, the silent majority are biding their time. This is anonymous, but quite interesting, because we asked Sarah Poachin about yesterday. It was supposed to be a huge rally. It was called off in the end. Reform were down there for a while, a couple of taxis, but not perhaps the number of people they were expecting. But the point was made. This says, note to Reform. Reform supporters work on Mondays. Pretty dumb day for a demo, and that's from a Reform voter, which is quite interesting. James is in Liverpool. Morning, Jay. Jez, a two-tier Teflon kid will get away with anything. He has his MPs by the balls. Brilliant. As most of them are career politicians who have not done anything in the real world, have no skills and are terrified of losing their jobs. Sounds like me. Pete's in Wiltshire. Given Starmer's confides in his Vic all the time, do you think that she passed a security vetting satisfactorily? Sounds like he might be discussing sensitive information. Can you imagine him being No, don't start. Margaret's in Birmingham. If Starmer loves Vic and the kids so much, I've got a theory. Why don't you bloody well resign so you can spend more time with them? Maybe they don't want him to. Maybe that's why she says it. Maybe that's the point we've all missed. 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're keeping the stories coming. Yesterday, the Tories sent a bombshell letter to Starmer, basically saying you need to apologise to the grooming gangs, to the victims. You failed drastically. I've said, I've talked about the Troubles Bill this morning, and I've talked about this story incessantly. There's much about this country I love. This is a national disgrace and a national shame. And of course, we get all hung up on, different religions, races, creeds. I'm not bothered. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Any man who thinks it's acceptable to groom and sexually attack a young girl, whatever her race, I'm going to keep saying it, does not, in my mind, deserve to be at liberty in the country I want to live in. And the fact that nobody, but our next guest, has had the courage to keep pushing for this. I don't understand politicians at the top, local councillors. I don't understand emergency services, medical services. I don't understand how this, by everybody I speak to, says this is the biggest cover-up. It is an absolute embarrassment to this country that we are still waiting for this to happen. The legend that is Maggie Oliver, who has spent her entire time, former detective from Greater Manchester Police, demanding this, joins us for a bit of an update. How are you, Maggie?
I'm good, thanks, Jeremy. Still banging that drum,
Can you answer what... Listen, we've spoken many times, and I'll always delight in having you on. And we spend our time criticising central government. They are the focal point. But if this is true, and the Tories, that letter yesterday, I think, was spot on, if they are onto it, and they were in power for 14 years, they too also hold some responsibility. The whole of, it seems, the system has covered this up for far too long.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, as always, Jeremy. Let's get it right. An apology is nowhere near enough. And the letter that Chris Phipps sent to Keir Starmer, I don't disagree with. But the issue is that actually what that letter says is precisely why I resigned from the police in 2012. So this is not new. This is old news. And for me, the issue is that it shouldn't have taken, 14 years of my life to get this letter which is being shown as a new thing. You know, what it says is absolutely right. Keir Starmer, at the time when I was working on Rochdale, which is what this letter is all about, he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, the top of the CPS.
Yep.
And he has now publicly owned or claimed credit for that case and for the charging decisions. That's something that I didn't know in 2012. But to claim credit for charging a man who got a 13-year-old child pregnant where we had a fetus and DNA with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child, not rape, and that man was out of prison in 3 years, to put another child on an indictment as one of the gang of paedophiles as a tactical option to get her evidence into court and then to try and take her children away from her based on the fact that she was a paedophile. Those decisions, he is now saying, were his, and this is not a party political point, this is him as the top of the CPS. He's claiming credit for those decisions. And I would bet my bottom dollar that every single person in the country who hears that the top lawyer in the country thought those decisions were right, were lawful, were credible, you know, they're not. And so, yes, we're catching up with what should have happened 15 years ago, in all honesty. And the cats are all coming out of the bag. And I am really glad that Chris Phipps has written this letter.
He also, in that letter, demanded Keir Starmer take the stand and give evidence under oath. That's also quite relevant, but you're right. I mean, yeah. You know more about this than me, but I'm sat here thinking you were in power for 14 years. Why didn't you lot push for this? It's like, again, without making it political, I've said this to the Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, Matt Vickers, this morning. They go on and on and on about immigration. They could have done more, or they could have done more quicker. It's very easy to sit. Yeah. And I accuse Labour of this. It's very easy to sit in the cheap seats and say, why haven't you done this? Yeah. What about Starmer banging on and on about Boris Johnson, put him in front of the Privileged Committee, spent 24 hours trying to cover his backside so he doesn't have to face a vote of whether he's lied or not. The whole thing is self-serving in the end, and the victims are those girls. And that's what needs to be done, doesn't it?
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Jeremy. You know, that they're playing party politics, and the Conservatives did nothing for all those years. Labour equally are doing nothing. You know, me and the Maggie Oliver Foundation, we are involved in trying to help with this new national inquiry. But the thing is, as you know, because I was on your show in March, you know, we're taking the government to a judicial review for not implementing the recommendations of the statutory 7-year national inquiry. And the thing is, you know, if they have no legal duty to implement those, another inquiry can deliver and recommend whatever they want to recommend. And a government, whether it's Conservative, Labour, you know, Green, whoever it is, they can just say, well, we're not doing anything about it.
What's the progress with that review? How did that go for you, the Maggie Oliver Foundation?
Say again, Jeremy.
How did the review, the demand for a judicial review, how's that gone? Give us an update.
It's been actually, it was a historic win apparently, but we are still on the road to that full judicial review. We've been given leave to take the government to that judicial review for non-implementation of the 20 recommendations, and the judge said that the country had a legitimate expectation that after a 7-year inquiry, recommendations should be implemented. But do you know what so the end of the year, we will be a full judicial review. We've now taken on the same legal team, but we've added a KC to it. It's a huge battle, and we are a tiny national charity having to fund it, first of all. But secondly, we shouldn't actually have to do this. After a 7-year national inquiry, 7,500 victims sharing their experiences, why on earth do we have to fight for them to be implemented? That, for me, I can't believe that is...
I sit here, when I speak, you know what I think of you. I love the bones of you. And can I shout out to the Maggie Oliver Foundation? Go online, show your support. It's an extraordinary organisation. But she's right. Maggie Oliver had to resign from the Greater Manchester Police. She became a whistleblower. She set up this charity. She works tirelessly to fund it, to simply get a voice for the victims of the most heinous crimes. And let's not get bogged down, and I make no apologies, this isn't anything other than all sorts of different men, grooming gangs, raping young, vulnerable girls. That is a stain on our society. It's a stain on almost everything we stand for. But listen, we stand with you, Mags. You know that. I think what you've done is an astonishing piece of work.
Oh, Jerry, can I just say, though, that for me, the abuse is one thing. The thing that enrages me is the deliberate neglect and failures of the institutions who are paid to protect children.
Yep.
And I won't rest until, some of those top men and women, but it's mainly men, unfortunately, at the top of policing, social services, government, and whether that's the Prime Minister or not, I want to see some of them in a criminal court, charged with misconduct in a public office, gross misconduct, criminal offences. In my opinion, that's what they are guilty of, and the abuse will always go on. What should never have happened is that the state turned away from these children and just threw them on the scrap heap because nobody bothered. And that's what...
Nobody bothered, or was it a cynical attack? See, this is the thing, just very quickly, that concerns me. Was it nobody bothered, or too many people were terrified that they would be implicated in something that's far more widespread than perhaps any of us imagine, Mags?
I think it's both. I think, the kids in general were from difficult backgrounds that, I always say, it wasn't Keir Starmer's daughter or Boris Johnson's, or if it had been my daughter, it would not have happened because I would not have remained silent. These kids often were living in care homes and basically nobody was fighting their corner. On top of that, you've got predominantly Pakistani Muslim men who shared different values to us, and they thought these kids were open season. And when the state allowed them to continue for decades, it's become sophisticated and it's organized crime, and the lives that have been destroyed are horrific. They're countless. And until we have personal accountability for those in office who have allowed that to happen, the message clearly is that actually it doesn't matter. So there are many things feeding into why this happened, but I do think personal responsibility is a big part of that, and who could be more personally responsible than the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is deciding on the charging decisions. So for me, that is the real issue here.
Couldn't agree more. Maggie, our support is set in stone. The Maggie Oliver Foundation, peeps, go online. She's an amazing woman. Thanks, Mags. 10 to 9. We're live across the United Kingdom. So much to do. Very quickly, I like Carl Turner's suits, but he's nuts if he thinks Rayner could be Prime Minister. I'm a working-class northern lass too, and as far as I'm concerned, she's an embarrassment. She's uneducated, she's got no manners, she's potty-mouthed, and she's a union puppet. Her workers' right bill is costing jobs. She looks a mess most days, and she sucks up to unelected community leaders for votes. Her majority is wafer thin. I hope she loses a seat. That's Suze. This is Helen. Good morning, Helen. Morning, Helen.
Morning, JK. Helen in Knutsford. Isabel Oakeshott was really right when she said that we don't want someone who's just normal running the country because they vape. That's a good reason to run the country. No, it's not. We want somebody who is of proper merit, who has the ability, who has the wherewithal, the oomph. So no, not Rachel. No, not at all. That Yorkshire bloke, the Labour guy, he does talk a lot of sense, but that's wrong. Talking of which, I've got a very, very good friend who's also a Yorkshire bloke, who's also a lefty, and oh my God, you can never have a conversation with him. You can't have a debate. He's always right. He has to have the last word. He wants to call me later, but I'm not going to answer the phone.
That was another show. I'm not getting involved in your private life. 0344 419 1000. Let's move now to a former security minister under Gordon Brown. Delighted to have him back on the show, Lord Alan West. Lord West, good morning.
Good morning.
We have our moments, you and I love having you on. Can we talk about the Troubles Bill very quickly, ex-security minister? I don't know what your thoughts are. Last night this passed, despite about 200 MPs abstaining. Can you, as a former security minister, just put into words why veterans who have donned a uniform and whose politicians have sent them to do a job should 30 years after they finish serving be faced with a human rights ideology that says there'll probably be a knock on the door, we'll probably prosecute you, by the way, oh, and we're giving immunity to the IRA, because it is beyond anybody that I talk to. Unbelievably bad.
Well, I think it's a total disgrace, and a whole group of our senior officers have been saying since they talked about amending this bill and putting those details in, that this is completely wrong. Our men in the future will be fighting, looking over their shoulders to think, I could be chased up by my own people. I mean, there's no doubt, yes, everybody has human rights, we understand that, but the human rights of our people who are protecting us and looking after us and who we're responsible for, I'm afraid, trump those of the people who want to kill us and are out trying to kill us all the time. And we seem to forget that, and we forgot it in Iraq. And it is not good. It's bad.
It's interesting to hear an ex-security minister. I spoke to Carl Turner earlier. OK, he's an independent now. I'd love somebody to be able to explain to me from Labour, Alan, the theory behind this, because this will be universally as hated, if not more so, than taking winter fuel payments away from pensioners. This is a suicidal policy, almost.
Well, it is stupid, and I have to say, why we're so wedded to it, I really don't understand.
Yeah.
It's not clever, and we should change it. And people say, oh, don't do a U-turn. It's not that much of a U-turn. They can amend this bill quite easily. So that it doesn't have this effect on our people. But it is wrong. It is absolutely wrong to go back 60. And let's face it, basically our soldiers went out every day at high risk where they might be killed to protect the people of Northern Ireland. Every day the terrorists went out with the aim of killing and maiming people. And to try and put them in the same bucket, I think is awful.
If you were Security Minister, I asked this for a reason, and this was put in front of you, would you resign your post?
That's a very good question. I think probably I will, but I'm slightly different because I've already had my career in the Navy and
I only say that because Al Cairns, who was a decorated soldier as the Security and Armed Forces Minister, was absent from the Commons yesterday during this debate. He's apparently on resignation watch, and many of his old fellow servicemen and women are saying you need to walk away from this. This is an utter disgrace to the veterans that you're part of.
Well, as I say, I think I probably would have done, but that's because I had no aspirations to be important politically or anything like that. It's a greasy pole, and you see all the politicians trying to climb up it. Al, I think, does actually have some aspirations to go further in politics. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I mean, it's something that I'd have thought he'd be really banging the drum about. Highly decorated, brave officer, and he really ought to, and his voice would be heard. And I think we've really got to put some pegs in the sand on a number of issues like this, because we're losing our way.
We've only got a minute and a half. Just very quickly, my friend. Argentina has told Falkland Islanders to go back to England. We had Simon Weston on, who was severely injured, very brave, and said the armed forces he doesn't recognise today. Do you imagine that Keir Starmer will give away the Falklands as he's done with the Chagos Islands?
Well, he'd better not, that's for sure. And I mean, basically, we were a band of brothers and went down there. Every time I've been in action with the British forces, I've been amazed by the quality and how good our people are. And one of the things that reassures me in this rather disturbed and unpleasant world is that the average Brit is still bloody good. But the Falklands, there's no doubt about it. We proved it belongs to us. The people who live there, all of them, want to stay part of our Commonwealth and part of Britain, really. And it is a nonsense. And the Americans doing this is stupid. But as I said on the wireless the other day, I'm afraid Hegseth, for example, he's thick. They don't understand the background to these things.
Completely agree. I love, honestly, you're my favourite person. I love having you on the show. I'm very grateful. Lord Alan West, former Security Minister under Gordon Brown. Wish we had more time, but thank you so much indeed, my friend. This is Jeremy Carr. Now, in the next hour, from 9 o'clock, of course, that Foreign Affairs Select Committee begins. Sir Philip Barton first up, former head of the Civil Service in the Foreign Office. Will he stick the knife into Keir Starmer, followed by Morgan McSweeney if he gets to the meeting without losing his phone? He will cover that. We've got Charlie Rowley and lots of guests in the next hour as we follow that. We've got the news at 9. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Foreign Affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something. Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Right, a busy hour coming up. You'll know that the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, chaired by Dame Emily Thornberry, is about to enter and start questioning 2 very important people, all tied into the Mandelson and Starmer debacle. The first up will be Sir Philip Barton, former head of the Foreign Office Civil Service. He was replaced by Sir Ollie Robbins, who stuck the knife in absolutely last week and said in no uncertain terms, from the moment I got the job, it was pressure. That's what happened. Is Sir Philip Barton going to spill the beans as well? He's first up at 9. We're going to keep us. We're going to do this live and we'll get interaction. Charlie Rowley. Hello, love.
Hello.
He's here. Also, Morgan McSweeney later on from 11. I'm sure Julie will take you through that as well. The ex-chief of staff who doesn't know which phone he lost or where that phone was lost or what his name was and how to turn messages on or whatever. All of that. Loads of commentary this hour. Alex Burkhardt, of course, from the Tory party. He is Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. I've got Steve Baker, former government minister. I've got Ben Habib. Charlie will be with me as well. Just Charlie, as we wait for Philip Barton and this to kick off, what are you expecting today?
I think Sir Philip Barton, who was the former head of the Foreign Office, will back Sir Ollie Robbins, who gave evidence, as you say, last week. Ollie Robbins was very clear that the process, yes, the process was followed of appointing Peter Mandelson, but he revealed that the way in which and the reason why Sir Ollie Robbins had been sacked so unceremoniously from his job was because he didn't share a particular part of the vetting process with the Prime Minister, but it was a piece of evidence that he hadn't actually seen himself. So there's a question around that sacking, if all due process has been followed. But Sir Ollie Robbins was very clear also that he felt that there was pressure.
Well, wasn't there that great quote that we can't quote where he was told, just get it done?
Exactly. And that'll be a question for Morgan McSweeney, because he, as Chief of Staff number 10, someone, could have particularly fruity language in his locker. We'll have to see.
It's going to be really interesting. This, of course, on the back of last night, the Tories put out this attempt and got a vote this afternoon on whether Starmer should face an ethics investigation into the Privileges Committee. We'll talk about that and the ongoing thing. Very quickly, we'll head to Victoria Gardens. Alex Burkhardt, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. A very good morning, my friend.
Good morning, good morning.
Interesting day. First up, Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Alex, how do you see it playing out? Do you think both will stick the boot in, one or neither?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see what Mr Barton has to say, because he was Ollie Robbins' predecessor, and Ollie Robbins said in his evidence last week that when he took over from Philip Barton, it was clear that there was a massive atmosphere of pressure from number 10 to just get this appointment done and to just make Peter Mandelson ambassador to Washington. So it'd be very, very interesting to see his side of the story. I mean, Morgan McSweeney will come on. I think Morgan McSweeney, was a very successful Chief of Staff and Special Advisor to the Prime Minister. His wife is still a Labour Party whip, so I think we'll get something that is much more the party line.
Very interesting. Last night your party, and I salute your party over this, called for, managed to get a vote through. The Speaker announced this afternoon on whether Starmer should face an ethics investigation from the Privileges Committee. You're in Parliament, I'm not. I had Dan Hodges, a great journalist on this show, who will not leave this story alone from the Mail. He said, and I quote, "The Prime Minister has misled the House 7 times. He's broken the ministerial code, and if you live and die by the fact that he would leave nothing undone in bringing Boris Johnson down, I ask you this, Alex Burkhardt, why in the name of God do you need to whip your MPs to vote to support you if you're nothing, if you're telling the truth and you've got nothing to damn well hide, my friend?"
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, that is absolutely on the nail, because if the Labour Party thought this was all ridiculous, if they thought that there was no case to answer, if they thought the Prime Minister, was purer than the driven snow, well, just let this happen. The vote today is about whether he should be investigated. And I'd say this, I can just see this happening to Labour MPs. The Prime Minister has thrown everyone under the bus in order to keep his job. Morgan McSweeney, the Cabinet Secretary Chris Wormald, Ollie Robbins, the Chief Mandarin at the Foreign Office, and if they let him, he will do the same thing to Labour MPs. Yeah, he will make them act as a human shield for him, and I can promise them they will live to regret it if they vote to shoot down and inquire into something that should obviously be happening. Everybody saw what the Prime Minister said last week at Prime Minister's Questions. Everybody saw what Ollie Robbins said. Everybody sees that the two things are manifestly different. Everybody can see that it's not following full due process to appoint someone who's a security risk to go and be our ambassador in Washington. We can see the Prime Minister, what he's done. And if the Labour Party starts saying that white is black, they are going to get themselves into really hot water, both in Parliament but also with the electorate.
And that, Alex, is the point. And this is
very smart.
No, this is the point, and I'm really glad you brought that up. And your party suffered this at the end of 14 years. I firmly believe, doing this show every morning, that when the British people, the silent majority, make a decision, and I think they've made it about Keir Starmer, genuinely I do, I don't think there's any turning back. It doesn't matter. Well, in my mind, they can whip their MPs. Their MPs can go, "Oh, my email box is full. I'm not going to do it." You can be thrown out like Carl Turner, who's at least got some damn principle, and I'll repeat that to every politician I speak to about that man. But the fact of the matter is, you go out there and you say to people, "This is the Director of Public Prosecutions who didn't do anything about the grooming gangs. This is the Director of Prosecutions who went mad when Boris Johnson dared to say to him, 'You let Jimmy Savile through.' This is the Director of Public Prosecutions who failed in his job. Not that he'll tell you that. This man is really good at pointing the finger. Talk about the Troubles Bill, right? People who fought for our country. He's happy to prosecute them, but he won't stand up and face the music. And the British people, they won't have it. I don't care how any politician dresses up, they will not have it.
No, you're totally right. I mean, last night in the House of Commons, I was leading the fight for the Conservatives, the whole of the opposition, leading the fight against the Troubles Bill, which the government's trying to continue. We were trying to stop it. He's saying that we have an absolute duty to protect those who protected us. And yet, time and time again, the Labour Party, who, as you say, is led by an international human rights lawyer, who has an international human rights lawyer as Attorney General, Lord Hermer, we now know, may have been involved in some very suspect practices involving the attempts to prosecute former soldiers. That these people just have a worldview that is not that of the British people, that is deeply unfair, and I think that ultimately this is going to end one of two ways. Either the Labour Party can wait until the next election, where I absolutely believe that the British public are going to throw Keir Starmer out, or they can get rid of him now. They can just get it done and move on, and see whether there's somebody else within their ranks who can do a better job of running the country, because this guy has absolutely failed in that attempt.
Alex, great to have you on, my friend, and good job last night on that Troubles Bill. We thank you so much indeed. The Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster on Talk Breakfast there. Right, 9:10, Charlie, we can go live. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee inside Westminster. Is Sir Philip Barton ready to be... Right, this is Sir Philip Barton, ex-head of the Civil Service.
Both the UK general election, but also the US presidential elections, and obviously there was, until the election was called, there was an uncertainty around the timing of the UK general election, given our political system, with an end point of January 2025. Karen and I had discussed, therefore, whether or not, if required, she'd be willing to stay a bit longer while we were able to see how those two elections played out, as it were. So there was flexibility. So to answer your question, in terms of September of 2024, that was before we knew the outcome of the US elections. The new government was only just in, so the SCDO and I were not actively looking at that point for candidates, because I felt we had time to see the outcome of the US elections, and Karen had shown flexibility over exactly when she ended in the beginning part of 2025.
And when were you first told that it was likely to be a political appointment?
When I was told of the Prime Minister's decision.
The 15th of December?
Yes.
So until the 15th of December, you had no information that any discussion had taken place, or certainly that a decision had been reached?
No.
And when you were told that a decision had been reached and it was Peter Mandelson, did you express any concerns about that?
I was, as I say, I was told of a decision, so I wasn't asked for advice. I was told a due diligence process had been carried out, and I think this is known now, as the Prime Minister had been made aware of the risks and had accepted those risks and decided to proceed. So I then moved on to a conversation, was asked for advice on the practical steps required to meet what was the Prime Minister's decision, and then the requirement around the timescale.
You say the Prime Minister had been made aware of the risks, but he hadn't, because the developed vetting hadn't been carried out. So all that had taken place was the due diligence. Did you ask whether or not developed vetting had been taken out or had taken place?
It was clear at that point that vetting had not taken place. It was clear to me at that point the step that had taken place was due diligence, not vetting.
Can I just ask you, do you remember who it was that was telling you these things?
I had a conversation with the private secretary in number 10.
Right.
And did you express a view as to whether or not developed vetting should take place before an announcement?
Yeah. So on that, later that week, as we were taking forward the practical steps required, the Cabinet Office initially said that as Mandelson was, to use the technical phrase from the guidance, a fit and proper person as a member of the House of Lords, he did not require developed vetting. I mean, to be honest with you, I thought that was odd and insufficient. I'd been Deputy Ambassador in Washington and therefore occasionally chargé, and I knew very well to do the job effectively you have to be party to some of the deepest secrets that the UK government holds, but I also recognised that the situation was unusual, and I therefore asked for advice, although I was pretty clear in my own mind, from the SCDO security team. They came back to me after discussions with the Cabinet Office and said that their advice was that he should have DV, and I absolutely agreed with that. And by then the Cabinet Office had reflected further, and they also agreed. And that, if I remember right, that conversation started at the back end of the week of the 16th of December, at the time that the public announcement was made, and then by the beginning of the following week, just before Christmas, it was clear that that was going to be the requirement. That's what I thought, as it were, and I endorsed the advice. And at that point, Mandelson was sent the forms that you need to fill in to kick off the whole process.
I mean, we have had a bit of a he said, she said on this. We've got the Cabinet Office saying that the Foreign Office asked, does he really need DV? And the Cabinet Office saying that the Foreign Office asked, does he really need DV? But you're down on the Foreign Office's side, that it was the Cabinet Office that said it first.
Look, I can't promise you who said what first. Right. I know what I was told. I was told the Cabinet Office suggested he didn't require DV. There clearly, self-evidently, was some further back and forth and consideration. And, I don't want to give you an impression that when we were taking forward the DV, there were people in the centre still saying, don't do that. By the beginning of the following week, everyone was agreed that he should have DV, and therefore it was now about taking that process forward. But I've given you my account of my memory of what I heard and what I thought at the time.
One thing is for sure, nobody made a note of it.
In the end, these were about practical arrangements rather than things which, are under, Chair, I know you've talked in previous hearings about civil servants writing everything down, but I also agree with those who've said to the committee that actually, if you're going to get work done, you simply cannot and do not have time to record every interaction. The key thing is what was the decision. The decision was he required DV, and that is recorded.
So the decision was he required DV. That was your view. It was the view of the Foreign Office Security Department. Yet we know that prior to his obtaining DV clearance, he was given access to information which would usually require DV to have been completed. So how did that come about?
So you had I can't remember if it's 7 or 8 pages, but it's certainly lengthy and thorough response from the SCDO yesterday. You sent them a very long, not very long, I don't mean that critical way, a list of questions. I didn't mean long in a critical way. A list of questions, and they're very good questions. I think there are good answers in the SCDO's response. I recognise them from the consideration of the time. The context I was going to share on this point is you have a publicly announced ambassador designate to do the single most important ambassador job for the UK. You have a very, very compressed time scale you're being asked to meet for them to start their role in Washington. And you have the exceptional circumstances of an incoming Trump administration and a very high premium, therefore, in the new ambassador arriving as well briefed as possible in the short time available, recognising that normally ambassadors have several months to prepare for big jobs like this, and that required Mandelson to have access to briefings and papers to allow him to be properly prepared. And so, as reflected in what the Foreign Office said to you in the note last night, a decision was taken in line with the guidance that he should be given access to the building and access to the paperwork, in particular on, for example, the UK government's preparations and policies towards an incoming administration.
Right, I just want to jump in there, Charlie. We'll come back to Philip Barton, but I just want to take a view on what we've heard already. I've written down a few things. He said, and I quote, that it was the Prime Minister's decision, not anybody else's. He said the Prime Minister knew the risks, right? Peter Mandelson, due diligence had been carried out. The Prime Minister had accepted the risks and wanted to proceed. So it was the Prime Minister who made the decision, the Prime Minister who accepted the risks. Interestingly, he also said it was odd and insufficient is how he described Mandelson's sort of vetting process.
Yeah, absolutely, because there is a he said, she said, as the chair, Damien Emily Thornberry, was putting it, between the Cabinet Office, who originally might have suggested, because he's a member of the House of Lords, Peter Mandelson doesn't require the most senior level of vetting. The Foreign Office, as Philip Barton put it, pushed back on that and said, actually, no, we think he should do, and everyone came to that agreement. But what's also telling is that Sir Philip Barton, who is the head of the Foreign Office, was only told that actually Number 10 and the Prime Minister, therefore, wanted Peter Mandelson on the 15th of December. And that is just a month before the inauguration of the President of the United States. That's why we're now in this situation where Number 10 wanted to rush that appointment through, because they wanted Mandelson in place ahead of that inauguration. And Sir Philip Barton was saying, well, hold on, when you're coming into this kind of role, some people have months in the lead up to prepare to become an ambassador somewhere. All of a sudden now, he's just been informed, as head of the Foreign Office, Number 10 want a political appointment and in super quick time.
Can I ask a question? We're going to go back to it after the break. Here's the thing I don't get, and I'll put this as best as I can. We've got the King with cancer currently dealing with Trump, soft diplomacy. We are saying that Keir Starmer and his acolytes thought so highly of Peter Mandelson that they were prepared to take all of these risks against all the security advice and anything to do with his background, because such an amazing person is he, that he is the only person that can deal with Donald Trump. He's not 77 with cancer. He's the only person that can do this, which is why we're going to rush it through. Can I just say, this is my opinion, I think that is absolute tripe. I have said this from the beginning. I don't know how to put this in the best terms. What the hell has this man got on senior figures in the Labour Party? There can be no definitive proof that he was the best person to deal with Trump. What a load of old tripe. They have dropped themselves in this, right? Dropped themselves in this. But I want to know why, Charlie. What is he I don't know how to put it.
Well,
does he know where the bodies are buried? Because what has Mandelson got on them all?
That could be, well, that should be a question for Morgan McSweeney later on, because he's the chief of staff, former chief of staff, that appears to be the one that has been driving this whole appointment. You know, he was a close
dynamite. That's going to be later.
So that will be absolutely later on.
We'll go back to Philip Barton, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. He's the ex-head of the Civil Service and the Foreign Office. He left his post in January 2025 because allegedly David Lammy wanted a change. Back in 3.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something. Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views.
I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 9:25. So the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, at the moment, the former head of the Civil Service and the Foreign Office, Philip Barton, being quizzed. They're talking about Mandelson's past. Pin back your logos.
And obviously you know the United States very well. Your previous diplomatic role there, you probably had links with people who are out there. Were you aware of any views that were expressed by the President's transitional team about concerns about Mandelson being given that post, or about Dame Karen Pierce being moved on from the post?
Well, I mean, there's quite a lot already in the public domain. There was, you know, at least one tweet from someone close to Trump, reminding people of what Mandelson had said about Trump many years before when he was president previously. I think those around Trump felt blindsided by the announcement at short notice. Shall we say, and it was clear also that Karen and her team had done an excellent job in establishing relationships and access to President-elect Trump, and also when he was a candidate, doing their jobs. That's a hard thing to do, particularly in the political climate in the US, while maintaining good relations with the current administration. And Trump, has, again, on the record, had said that he'd like Karen and work well with her and be happy for her to stay. So that's a rather long-winded way of saying yes.
Thank you. Can I just on what you were saying earlier about the DV and the access point? It's just to be fair on you, it is page 5 of the,
Thank you very much, Chair.
statement
I appreciate
from
your help.
Pollard, it's paragraph 5, and it's where I believe that it says Lord Mandelson's private secretary should in advance inform people that he was meeting that they knew he did not yet have DV clearance.
Thank you.
Okay. Richard.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sir Philip, for returning to the Foreign Affairs Committee to give evidence. The Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, was reflecting last September on the discussions that were had in government the year before about Lord Mandelson's appointment, and he reflected that that you, Sir Philip, had reservations. Can you remember what you were saying to the National Security Advisor about your reservations around appointing Lord Mandelson back in 2024?
I think it was very much along the lines of what I just said around the possibility of his known connection to Epstein causing an issue subsequently. Obviously, I didn't know what was actually going to happen because Epstein was such a toxic hot potato subject in US politics itself, including in the election campaign. So that is what I recall thinking at the time, and can't prove this because I don't know what Jonathan was thinking when he said it last September, but my instinct is that's what it refers to.
Okay, and then thinking later on that year about the Number 10 operation, do you recall any dismissiveness in Number 10 about the importance of vetting, and if so, how was that communicated to you?
I wouldn't use the word dismissive. The word I would use is uninterested. I think, people wanted to know that all the practical steps required for Mandelson to arrive in Washington on or around, by or around the inauguration date needed to be completed, at pace, as it were, and that was it. The interest. I mean, no one, to be honest with you, no one said to me, "Look, Philip, the Prime Minister knows there's some risks around this. Can you really make sure that the vetting's done rigorously?" I mean, it's always rigorous anyway, but that wasn't the sort of thing being communicated. The sort of thing was, fine, he needs vetting, make sure it's done in time.
Okay, thank you. Last week, when Sir Ollie gave evidence to the committee, I said that Sam Coates had reported words around "just to prove it," and I need to correct the record slightly because Sam Coates didn't actually report that. He didn't file a report. He did discuss it with a member of this committee. He didn't actually put it in writing. It didn't get off the cutting room floor. But it doesn't take away from the fact that his reply made plain that he had a strong sense that there was an atmosphere of pressure and a certain dismissiveness about this developed vetting. Could you comment on that atmosphere of pressure as you understood it in late 2024?
Can I just say one thing about the non-reported phone call and use of a particular word? I think it's important. I say this. Look, firstly, I didn't receive any direct calls from the Chief of Staff during my time as Permanent Undersecretary, so there was no call at all. So my interactions with him were always when others were present in a general meeting. There weren't very many of those either. This story or versions of it has been in the media persistently or floating around the media since last September. There's different versions, sometimes involving a swear word, sometimes not. And I've really racked my brains, and I cannot recall Morgan with Sweeney swearing in a meeting at me, or indeed just in general. So I don't see any substance in this that part of it. And I think it's important I say that this morning, given how many people have come to think that might be true. In not answering your question, I've slightly forgotten what your actual question was. I know I didn't answer it. I did that on purpose. But can you just the headline at the end of your question? Sorry.
So Ollie, when replying last week, said that there was an atmosphere of pressure and a certain dismissiveness about this DV process, and I wondered if you could comment on the atmosphere of pressure, please.
I think where I would start is on the 18th of December, I received a letter from the Principal Private Secretary to the Prime Minister, and it's the one released as part of the humble address. I received letters from the Principal Private Secretary to the Prime Minister very often. Most of my dealings was with the Foreign Affairs team in the Number 10, as you'd expect. And the letter, as you know, basically says the Prime Minister has decided. And it then goes on to say, please could arrangements be put in place, words to that effect, for a handover by the inauguration, a very compressed timescale. And that, in effect, is the top of the government saying the Prime Minister has decided he wants Mandelson as ambassador, and he wants it done in that timescale. So that is what creates the pressure. There were conversations around progress, but I think no one in the FCDO working on this can have been any doubt of the urgency of the issue and the importance that Number 10 and the Prime Minister attached to Mandelson being in DC in very short order.
Can I help you? On page
Yes.
22 of the bundle that's in front of you, the letter is there.
Yeah, no, thanks, Joe. I've got the letter. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it's clear. Please would you take forward the necessary arrangements at pace? We would like to secure Agrimor as soon as possible, the formal agreement of the US government, as it were,
Read the end of the sentence.
as soon as possible to enable a handover in advance of the US inauguration.
In advance of the US
at that point,
inauguration.
that was the ambition at the start.
He's given the job on the 20th of December, and they want him at the US inauguration on the 20th of January.
Correct.
So you have a month.
Yes. Sorry, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. And I have another, and it relates to that time in December. And I just wanted to sort of try and get an idea for some of the events that were happening in December of 2024. The Prime Minister gave a speech on the 5th of December where he talked about the tepid bath. And just to recap for people not familiar with it, he said that people in Whitehall are comfortable in the tepid bath of managed decline. The implication was that the civil service was satisfied to stagnate and was not sufficiently reactive to political direction. I wonder whether that had any influence on the...
Let's just jump in. Just to pick up, I'm going to bring Steve Baker in just to tick. Charlie, couple of things. It seems in the last couple of minutes Barton seemingly retracting, but he came out with a couple of damning things early on there. He said, I was told to get on with the Mandelson appointment. Number 10 was uninterested in the vetting process. The PM wanted Mandelson appointment at pace and at all costs. In effect, that's what they're saying.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Philip Barton described Number 10's attitude as being uninterested. Ollie Robbins described
uninterested in the vetting process.
Uninterested, exactly. Ollie Robbins described it as dismissive. Now, Philip Barton chose to take another word to describe it, but that sums up the attitude of Number 10. And you're right, this is all about the pressure that was put on the Foreign Office to get the vetting process and Mandelson in place as soon as possible.
Before the inauguration.
Before the inauguration. So where the accusation is that there was pressure put upon the Foreign Office, we're now in the weeds of whether it was just pressure because of the pace in which the appointment needed to be made, or was it pressure to just get Mandelson through?
Let's bring in Steve Baker. It'd be great to get him on, former Conservative Government Minister. Steve, welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you, pal?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm all right, but I'm absolutely aghast at the absurd fiasco of a Prime Minister refusing to take responsibility for the consequences of decisions where he was warned about the risks. This is where this all comes from.
I mean, absolutely. So far, we've heard it was the Prime Minister's decision. He knew the risk. He accepted the risk. Barton was told to get on with it. Number 10 was uninterested in vetting. PM wanted Mal's appointment at pace and at any cost. You know, we've got a vote later on, Steve. You've been central to Parliament for so long, before the last election, and you know, somebody, I think it was the excellent Carl Turner, who said this morning, to whip your own MPs to support you when everybody knows you've lied 7 times smacks of many things. But I thought the best thing overnight was Cleverly, who said, if you've got nothing to bloody well hide, why are you whipping your MPs? This man should face the very thing he went on and on and on for Boris Johnson to do, shouldn't he, Steve?
Absolutely, he should go before the Privileges Committee and answer for himself. But of course he knows why he doesn't want to. It's because he's in deep trouble and they'll find against him. Look, this is a ridiculous situation. There's so much politics going on here, even to the point that the Labour government are now saying it's mere politics from the Conservatives. Well, let's just check the record, shall we, about how they behaved. I mean, I'm afraid I can't help smiling at the sheer absurdity of their conduct. But the truth is, the public deserve a lot better than this nonsense. Even if you just take the vote today, it's a matter of conscience for MPs whether they think their Prime Minister should go before the committee to see if he lied. It's business of the House, which is traditionally not whipped because it's how the Commons itself organises itself and the status of an individual MP. And of course, there's the issue of accountability to their electors. I mean, many members of the public won't care about this and will be just getting on with their lives. But the truth is, many will deeply care about whether the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom lied in order to get his chum in, lied over the matter of how he got his chum in. I mean, it's an absolute farce. It's going to continue to distract for months. And the truth is, not only should he go before the Privileges Committee, he really should resign. He's not going to, and he's not going to be removed, I think, because his MPs fear what comes next.
It's really interesting, actually. He's just admitted, whilst we're talking, that there was undue pressure, hasn't he, Charlie? He said that. I want to put this to you, Steve, because I don't know any other better way of asking this question. We can sit here and talk about it was his decision. The Prime Minister, he knew the risks. They were uninterested in the vetting process. We can look at the Foreign Office. Maybe Barton didn't take a call. Maybe Ollie Robbins did. Maybe McSweeney doesn't know where his phone is. All this crap. And I'm sort of with you on this. But the thing that I don't get, mate, and you were in the upper echelons of government, is this. We've got a cancer-ridden 77-year-old king right now dealing with Donald Trump in a soft diplomatic way, and I think giving credence to what the British monarchy is all about. But we are expected to believe that the only person who needed to be shoehorned into this appointment before the inauguration was Peter Mandelson, who, forgetting his past and all that, was apparently the best person to deal with Donald Trump. My two questions are this. I initially thought, I wonder why Trump agreed to it. And then I thought, oh, maybe because he's clever enough to work out that all this Epstein stuff will come out and will deflect off him. But more importantly, I don't get, Steve, right? What must he have on them all to even being considered, let alone rushed through for this appointment, pal?
Well, he's called the Prince of Darkness for a reason, I'm afraid, isn't he? And the truth is, if you've been around at the heart of politics, organising and orchestrating, as I admit I have been, you end up knowing everybody's foibles. You know where they were strong and where they were weak in the past. And you, even if you kept yourself to matters which were clean and of a public interest, you'd still have material which people wouldn't want to come out about why they took decisions that they did and how they folded and voted against their best interests or their best view of their constituents' interests or whatever. If you mix into that people who've been personal friends for many years and have sat around the table at dinner parties and whatever and heard people's darkest fears, well, then, of course, he'll know all sorts of things. But, you know, this is, of course, speculation and a matter of opinion. Far be it from me to get into any specifics, because the last thing I want is somebody trying to sue me. But the reality is Mandelson's record is long and
tainted,
obviously extremely risky. I mean, the man is followed around by scandal like a little puppy dog, and the civil service will have known that, and the Prime Minister knew it. When the due diligence was done, it will have revealed the obvious things business with China, business with Russia, the previous scandals, previous questions about his finances, the relationship with Epstein was well known. The truth is the Prime Minister knew what there was to be known and took the risk and inserted him. And now we're going through all this misery and expense so that the Prime Minister can try and blame somebody else for the consequences of his own daft decision. Now, whether he was under some kind of duress to appoint Mandelson, I couldn't possibly comment, but I think we do know that Mandelson's been around the top of the Labour Party for a very, very long time, and a lot of people will owe him. So exactly what's happened and why, we can't know, but it is a very serious matter to even have in the public domain speculation about whether our Prime Minister made a decision under duress. I mean, it's incredible that it's come to this.
Couldn't agree more, Steve. I've got to cut you there, mate. You know we love having you on. Sorry, it's a busy old morning. Great comment. Steve Baker, former Conservative Government Minister. We'll head very quickly to the leader of Advance UK. Give everybody a chance this morning. Ben Habib. Morning, Ben.
Morning.
Extraordinary scenes. Barton saying it was the Prime Minister's decision. He knew the risks. He accepted the risk. I was told to get on with the appointment. There was pressure. They wanted the Mandelson appointment, or the PM did, in any way at pace. And the most telling thing for me, Number 10 wasn't interested in vetting Ben Habib.
Yeah, well, it would seem that everyone's now pointing the finger of blame at everyone else. The Foreign Office is blaming the Cabinet Office. The Cabinet Office is blaming the Foreign Office. The Prime Minister is blaming everyone else apart from himself. But can I just pick up on something Steve Baker said? It was really interesting. I think your question, Jeremy, is the pertinent one. What does Mandelson have on all these people that he kept being exhumed from the graveyard of political death? And being, you know, first of all made a European commissioner, then ennobled, and then ambassador to the United States of America, having already resigned twice early on in Tony Blair's government from cabinet positions. And I think it's too innocent an interpretation that Steve Baker gave in answer to your question, that he simply had been around for a long time. He knew people's foibles. He knew how they had voted. That is sanitizing the corruption, I think, that is at the heart now of our government, our parliamentary, our entire parliament, and indeed the civil service. The civil service, if I can come back to that for a second, the Cabinet Office discovered that its own, the UK security vetting body is part of the Cabinet Office. It only discovered for the first time, senior members of the Cabinet Office, only discovered for the first time in March 2026 that the vetting had failed in January 2025. The department in which the vetting service sat only informed its bosses a year later. And then the bosses sat on that report for 3 or 4 weeks while they took legal advice as to whether they could tell the Prime Minister. This is a country that has lost touch with reality. The minute he failed vetting back...
Could not agree with you more. Could not agree with you more, Ben.
This would never have happened in any business. The minute someone down the chain in a business had discovered something had gone horribly wrong at a senior level, alarm bells would have gone rushing through a business and any institution pretty much across the country, making sure people in authority knew what had happened. And
Ben, let's just dip back in. Charlie Rowley's here as well. Let's just dip back into Barton.
That we were choosing to brief him on, and there was a kind of what you'd expect, a proper professional process run by the team in charge of our relationship with the United States to give him access, particularly to briefing on US government policy towards the incoming administration across a range of issues. And I remember seeing the list of issues, and I probably looked at it and thought, yes, that looks like a sensible list, but I didn't look myself at the briefing and wouldn't have had or expect to do that.
In none of the emails it makes reference to him being subject to cleared vetting, so it's almost as though he's got the job and we're just going through the process. Was there anything in any of the documents that said this is all subject to satisfactory DV?
As far as I recall and am aware, the first time the documentation shows subject to DV is when the FCDO sent him what is a standard form of words for people who are going into jobs. I'm not aware of any other references in the documentation.
I mean, would it be right?
Charlie, so I'm looking up on all the television screens. Sky are breaking. Barton not aware of any pressure on the vetting process, but I'm saying that he admitted there was pressure. Can you help me out with that?
Absolutely. Look, Philip Barton has made it clear. He says, during my tenure, I was not aware of any pressure on the substance of Mandelson's developed vetting case. But then when asked, was there pressure? He says, absolutely. Pressure to get it done as quickly as possible. And this is crucial because the Prime Minister in the House of Commons has said there was, and I quote, no pressure existed whatsoever about the whole process. And that's why the Tories and opposition parties are now bringing this vote against Starmer today, because he has or potentially misled the House by saying no pressure existed whatsoever. Philip Barton has said, well, there was pressure.
On the back of Ollie Robbins. Ben Habib, very quickly, you talked about the civil service, you talked about the government. Let's not forget that it came out with Ollie Robbins last week that this government, this Prime Minister, wanted Lord Matthew Doyle, also thrown out the party, ex-communications director, known to have links to a paedophile as well. We've had this. They wanted to find him an ambassadorial role. Now, whoever you blame number 10, you blame the Foreign Office. You sit here, if you're me, and I'm with Ben Habib, sorry, it's rotten to the core, man, isn't it?
It is rotten to the core. And of course there was pressure. Mandelson was appointed before the vetting was completed. The only explanation for that is that there was pressure. You wouldn't go ahead and do it. He was given access to secret documents, confidential information, which only someone who's gone through vetting would normally get. That would only happen if there's pressure. So they're all hiding under this putrid blanket of corruption, and that's the only way to describe it. The alternative is to say that they are ridden with incompetence to the point that they're incapable of governing. Well, that's just as bad as being riddled with corruption. Frankly, the whole lot of them need a complete clear-out. And while we're at it, we've got to get rid of the Constitutional Reform and Governance Act that Tony Blair brought in that gives these civil servants the protections that they have. They should just be standard employees. They screw up, they should be out on their rear.
I never thought when I started on this station, both of you quickly, that phrase that they came up with, common sense, was so pertinent, increasingly so. Even Trump used it in his inauguration speech. On a genuinely serious note to you, I sit here and I think to myself, so either Mandelson must have so much on all of you that you were forced to do this, or you're so incompetent, actually thick, that you thought that you could hoodwink the British public. Either way, you are grossly not able to do the job that you've been elected to do. That's
Whichever path you go down, they've got to go, right? Whichever path you choose, incompetent or corruption, it ends up with the same conclusion. They've got to go. That we need a complete clear-out and a reframing of the architecture of government and the civil service. We've got to get a grip of this problem because it's going to eat away at the country until we no longer exist.
Ben, thank you, my friend. Great to have you on, leader of Advance UK. Ben Habib, Charlie's with me. So that is ongoing with Barton, OK? Julia will play more of that, and also leading up to Morgan McSweeney, the ex-chief of staff, hopefully will make it to the chamber without losing his jacket. He's probably got two jackets with him, but the one that's got his speech that he was going to read, he's probably left in the toilet and the speech wasn't there anyway. I'm just joking. Morgan McSweeney are you staying or are you going? Is he staying? You just stay. You like the furniture in your green tie. The other big news of the day, and we'll talk more about this, but is the King's visit. And the irony is not lost on me that I'm sat here watching Sir Philip Barton, I would say subtly stabbing Keir Starmer. Would you agree with that? Whereas Ollie Robbins was a bit more out there. We're waiting for Morgan McSweeney. There's this afternoon there's a vote on whether Starmer should face the ethics committee. Almost everybody to a person thinks he should, but he's trying to get out of that. Meanwhile, our King, 77, Charlie, suffering with cancer, is doing what the Prime Minister should be doing, which is out in the United States repairing a fractured relationship caused by Starmer and Trump, let's be perfectly honest, but the King's doing his business. We're going to leave this and just shoot very quickly. See what I did there? To Kinsey Schofield, live and exclusive. I think she's in Washington, D.C. Morning, Kins.
Hi, JK. I am here. Good to see you.
What time is it there?
4:49 a.m.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is getting ridiculous, isn't it? We'll have to change the time of the show. This poor woman needs to sleep. We're watching Starmer being basically... I don't know the right way to describe it. I'll get into trouble, but it's a slow and painful death. That's the impression we get. Overnight, the King, of course, Kinsey with Queen Camilla, landed at the Andrews Air Base, taken to the White House. Afternoon tea, looked very strange in America. And today we'll speak to Congress, the first person from Britain to do that since his late mother, of course, where he's going to extol the virtues of maintaining the special relationship even when we disagree.
Yeah, and can I just say, duh. I mean, I did TV all over the world yesterday, and Ingrid Seward, I'll just call her out, was on TV saying, I don't think he'll bother talking about the special relationship. I think he'll focus on Ukraine. Why would he focus on Ukraine when that would give Harry and his weird, mental breakdown Ukraine speech any sort of credibility whatsoever? No, he's going to talk about the special relationship. Of course, he's going to talk about the special relationship because the special relationship is in jeopardy. And what unites our countries is, if you want to define the special relationship, it's military, it's economic, it's political, it's cultural. And, the two countries are each other's closest defense partners. Yes, he has to get up there and he has to address Congress about the special relationship because unfortunately, Keir Starmer and Donald Trump haven't been playing nice. And here comes, King Charles in to keep the peace.
I completely agree, and let's call it out for what it is. Starmer pandering to certain elements of his party. I supported him not going on those sorties, I'm being honest, but I don't support him being petty and ridiculous. Charlie, you'd agree about the air bases. I thought that was ridiculous. Donald Trump, a lot of time for him. Certain things infuriate me. Dare you insult the British soldiers that lost their lives in Afghanistan, mate? Don't even damn well go there. So right and wrong on both sides. But the special relationship, Kins, we know will endure two personalities because it goes much deeper than that. He's going to talk about the assassination attempt. He's going to stick up for the British Navy. We've only got one ship, of which Trump described them as toys. I don't disagree with him on that either. But I want to make the point, as I made yesterday, Kinsey, because you and I are both royalists through and through. Don't know about Charlie. This is a window that shows the absolute importance of the British royal family when it works. It is completely without... I don't think anything gets close to it when it works as Charles and Camilla are working right now in Washington, D.C.
This is not ceremonial, as some have described it here in the United States. I mean, I do think that there is a lack of information when it comes to U.S. media about how strained our country's relationships are right now, because there are some that are coming at this as like a big birthday party for America, and Winnie the Pooh's going to be there, and so is Queen Camilla and Donald Trump. But it is strategic, and behind those smiles and those glossy pictures of President Trump and the First Lady and the King and Queen, there were real concerns about security, especially after the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But more importantly, the trip is about stabilizing a relationship that's under strain. And the king is stepping into this diplomatic role, whether it's acknowledged publicly or not. And he has that magic touch. He has something politicians don't have, a long-standing personal relationship with the president and the first lady. He's been pen pals with both for years, which I think is really unique. And he's not going to try to negotiate policy, but he can soften tensions between your prime minister and my president, and that's
my
what the
prime minister values. My prime minister. Don't even go there, Schofield.
Wait, I should say, except not wake up Britain's prime minister, alarm clock Britain's certainly not alarm clock Britain's prime minister, but the UK's prime minister. And his value is that quiet diplomacy, and that's what we're seeing play out.
Just very quickly, after the assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner and also this trip, does that strengthen the doubters behind Donald Trump?
No.
Love him or loathe him. No middle ground.
Look at Jimmy Kimmel, who made another inappropriate joke on his program cutting to a shot of Melania Trump saying she looked like a mourning widow. And when Melania made a very rare statement saying, I think he should have his show canceled, and everybody's saying, oh, this is so unique. Presidents never do that. Actually, Barack and Michelle Obama had Roseanne removed from her own show named after her. So it has happened before. Jimmy Kimmel has the nerve to go on his program and, similar to the Charlie Kirk situation, blame MAGA for the violent rhetoric that came out of his mouth. So no, if you don't like Trump, you don't like Trump. If you can stand Trump, everything's normal. I think he's a polarizing character, but I'd also argue that the king is a polarizing character to some people too, not to the extent that Donald Trump is, but I think, you know, they're similar in that way.
Kins, listen, I'm so sorry we keep waking up at 4:30 in the morning, but get to bed early tonight because we'll have you on again tomorrow. We appreciate it so much. Day 2 of the King and Queen's trip to Washington. He will address Congress. We'll bring you that tomorrow. Final word from you, Charlie. Sir Philip Barton. It was the Prime Minister's decision. He knew the risks. He accepted the risk. I was told to get on with the Mandelson appointment. There was pressure. Do it at pace, and we're uninterested in vetting. More damning words about the Prime Minister.
Absolutely, and it just plays into what we have heard from opposition parties, that this was an appointment that Number 10 wanted. They wanted it done at pace, and there was a disinterest, a dismissive attitude towards the vetting and the actual process, which goes against what is the Prime Minister's defence. He says due process was followed at all time. No pressure existed whatsoever. Those things are not stacking up for the Prime Minister today.
This afternoon, the Commons will vote on whether Starmer should face an ethics investigation in front of the Privileges Committee that he forced Boris to. That won't happen because the Labour MPs are going to fall behind him, right?
Exactly. And that'll be seen again like a stitch-up. A man that's bunkering down, hunkering down in Number 10, when he has all of these questions to answer, that he misled the House, he's appointed someone that shouldn't have been appointed. That was an error of judgment on his part. He should be carrying the can for that, but he's going to be hiding behind, as you say, those backbenchers.
We have some breaking news on Talk. This might affect the next hour. Morgan McSweeney. His dog has eaten his speech. He won't be able to go to the thing this morning. And anyway, he went to the wrong address and he's lost his filofax. So I'm joking. Morgan McSweeney, you nearly went with that. Oh my God. Philip Barton at the Foreign Affairs Select Committee now with Emily Thornberry and the gang. Morgan McSweeney from 11 and Julia Hartley-Brewer will take you through it all from 10 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 for Julia. You can text a show as well. 87222. Thank you, Rolly, in your green tie.
Thank you very much.
Turn into my protege. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. It's at your pace. That was another breakfast. And Julia next on Talk. Ta-ra.